It's a beautiful Thursday morning. Welcome on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakbo, and over these next 4 hours, I'm going to be steering the wheel, guiding you through the programming we have lined up for you. From where we are to where we are, we actually say good morning to you. Now, coming up, I'll be serving you the news in a bit, and right after that, guess who joins us for the news review? He is with Arise Ghana. I'm talking about Bernard Mornah. After which, as always, we'll serve you AM Sports, but before that, we'll bring you other details on that. But then with the big stories this morning on AM Exclusive, guess who joins us? Dr. Antoinette Tsibu-Darko. She's Executive Director, Dankwa Institute, and Deputy General Secretary of the MPP. She is our guest this morning on AM Exclusive. You want to stay for that. But then there's also a push for government to release the full findings of, guess what? The KPMG report on the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, SML for short, and the Ghana Revenue Authority deal, these two. Now, you do recall that Mr. President put forth that, request for the KPMG to come through with its assessment of these entities. The audit, which among others has revealed that 1 billion Ghana cedis has so far been paid to SML for revenue mobilization services. Now, we go into the details of the 5-page document released from President Akufo-Addo's communications outfit. They got the report. We called for the report to be given to us. Well, there's a 5-page document now available. We'll be getting into that. We'd love you to join us with your thoughts, comments by phone, and via our social media handles as well. When we activate the phone lines, be one of those to call. In the meantime, stay for the news up next. Welcome back. Welcome to the news belt of the AM show. Now we start with our first story. President Akufo-Addo has reiterated his government's commitment to investing in the country's power sector. He said several policies and measures had been outlined to promote green investments and foster a culture of energy efficiency. President Akufo-Addo made the statement at the commissioning of a 15 peak megawatt solar power plant at Kalio in the Upper West region. Joining us is Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam now reports.
President Akufo-Addo noted that the commissioning of the 15 megawatt solar power project at Kalio is not just about providing electricity, but represented a fundamental shift towards sustainable development. He averred that renewable energy sources such as solar power does not only reduce the country's reliance on fossil fuel, but also help reduce the effect on climate change as well.
By investing in renewable energy infrastructure, we're securing a reliable source of electricity and creating new opportunities for economic growth and job creation. This plant will not only power homes and businesses, but also serve as a catalyst for development in the Upper West region, attracting investment and spurring innovation. To this end, government is implementing a series of policies and measures to incentivize green investments, foster a culture of energy efficiency, and prioritize the development of solar, wind, and hydroelectric power projects as key strategies for the growth of the energy sector in the country. Vision, however, is not only to be energy self-sufficient, but also to set the stage for Ghana to emerge as an eco-friendly country in the region, inspiring neighboring countries to follow suit in their pursuit of a greener, more energy technology-centered future.
President Akufo-Addo spoke of the benefits that the people in the region and the country at large will derive from the commissioning of the solar power plant.
From this plant, adding 15 megawatts of power to the national electricity grid will also improve the quality of power supply in the Upper West region. reduce national carbon emissions by displacing energy that gas-fired thermal plants would otherwise have generated. I'm told that is estimated at 8,117 tons. It will also promote practical studies in the development of solar power by the technical universities in the northern part of the country. As I indicated 2 years ago, government is continuously investing in the electricity transmission network to enable the country to evacuate more reliable renewable energy through the national grid to support the extension of electricity to all parts of the country.
Deputy Minister for Energy, Herbert Krapper, assured Ghanaians of the plans put in place by President Akufo-Addo to ensuring that the power outages in the country are a thing of the past.
His Excellency the President has led all of us in the power sector to ensure that we're putting arrangements in place to procure additional fuel to run all our thermal plants and power producing plants at full capacity. And His Excellency the President has also led realignment of operational and technical arrangements in the entire power sector value chain, which is the reason I'm able to assure the people of Ghana that in the next few days, the power challenges that we are seeing under the leadership of His Excellency the President, it will be a thing of the past.
The project was funded by the German Development Bank, KfW, at 60 million euros with counterpart funding from the Volta River Authority, GRA, paid at 8.2 million euros. Kofi Tutu-Ajare is the board chair of Volta River Authority.
Aside from affirming our commitment to ensure the provision of clean and reliable and sustainable power, the completion of this plant today has enormous benefits to the Kaleo community and by extension the northern parts of the country. And I think it is true to say that with this plant up and running, this community will be the first community in Ghana, including the Malaria area, to run solely on solar power on good days.
There were representatives from the Spanish, German embassies and the European Union at the function. Our Powers Regional Minister, Stephen Yakubu, disclosed that the project is of enormous importance to the people, starting from the construction stage, which has employed several people in the region.
During its construction phase, the project provided employment opportunities for several individuals, with 95% hailing from nearby communities. Additionally, the project's corporate social responsibility initiatives, including the rehabilitation of the Kaleo DA Primary School, improvement of road infrastructure, and the potential for tourism development, exemplify our commitment to holistic development and community empowerment.
The Kaleo solar power plant will increase Ghana and Viera capacity to 50 megawatts. It will also diversify the energy portfolio by adding more renewable energy to its fold. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Kaleo.
Now, the National Democratic Congress's running mate, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, has avowed that the next NDC administration will prosecute all government officials involved in corruption. She made the promise at a ceremony to outdoor her as running mate to former President John Dramani Mahama ahead of the 2024 election. She has, among other things, taken a swipe at government over what she believes is a mismanagement of the economy. My colleague James Aveji has more in this report.
Draped in the symbolic red, white, green and black colors of the umbrella, hundreds of NDC sympathizers and party bigwigs gather here at the UPSA Auditorium in Accra to witness the outdooring of Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman as running mate to John Dramani Mahama.
Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman.
Chairman of the party, Johnson Asedu Nketia, set the tone for the night by bursting the bubbles of those anxiously waiting for appointment in the next NDC government.
Some people are not only fighting about the positions they will occupy. They are telling all others that they will be the kingmakers and they will be making their appointment. If we are not careful, this will dampen the enthusiasm and the spirit of our followers.
Rolling out her vision to party faithfuls and Ghanaians, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman did not shy away from taking a swipe at government.
I don't know about you, but the image I get looking at that hole is a trench in utter shock that anyone could believe it was intended as a Thanksgiving gift to the Almighty, invisible, God only wise. Such a report will not find COVID money shared for partisan political campaign purposes. I will not, in the advancement of self-serving ambition, declare to the whole world that I was only the driver's mate.
So what will her government offer Ghanaians?
The report will highlight new roads, harbors, railway lines, not what we've seen of late, Ayalolo buses. You will find the lack of intimidation of opposing voices. You will find serious investment and practice to enable a digitized economy and society. The report will go on to point at housing projects, including the famous Saglemi housing complex, and even those that somebody has happily raised to make room for a presumed.
Knowing the role Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is playing as head of the economic management team and lead on government digitization agenda and what may be expected of the next Vice President, former President John Dramani Mahama explains what the exact job description of his Vice President will be.
She has great insights into human resource management, empowerment and social development. And under my administration, she will have oversight, among others, of the education sector, the health sector, gender and social protection.
Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman says the next NDC administration will deal with all corrupt government officials.
John and I have agreed that whoever has participated in the plunder of the state must be held accountable. And my friends, this is not a threat, it is a promise.
As to whether this second John and Jane ticket will deliver victory for the NDC come December 7, 2024, the race has just begun. James Abeji, Joy News.
He is confined to the use of crutches, but that does not in any way limit his ability to keep the traffic flowing and the streets safe. This is the story of 47-year-old physically challenged Bernard Quay. For the past 11 years, he has found joy in directing traffic in parts of Accra when the lights fail to shine. Bernard believes this is his contribution to nation building. My colleague Emmanuel Jivenu has more in Joy Prime's latest feature, Crutches and Courage.
It is evening rush hour and vehicular congestion is building here at the Mataheko intersection. Forward. In this thick congestion is Bernard, a 47-year-old physically challenged. An area of hope when the traffic lights fail to shine. For the past 11 years, Bernard has found joy in bringing order to the roads during the rush hours. His story began in 2013, the peak of erratic electricity supply, leaving many traffic lights powerless. It was then that Bernard, undeterred by his own challenges, stepped up to fill the void.
Whenever I reach any traffic that I see that there is jam, one, within some few minutes, I'll be able to see what I could do with it, how to manage them accurately, and there will be no crash.
His presence commands respect on the road. No motorist dares to challenge his authority. Yet, despite facing ingratitude from some drivers, Bernard sees his work as a contribution to nation building, echoing the president's call to be citizens and not spectators.
Within me, I know it is from God that I'm doing this. I'm not doing it to praise anybody or to blame anybody. I do it just to praise God and to help my mind, my country, that's all. Like the president says, we should be citizens and not spectators.
As Bernard continues to navigate the busy intersections, he's concerned about the dysfunctional traffic lights in many parts of Accra.
We have to change the lighting system, the traffic situation, the traffic regulations here. We have to change it before things will function very well. No matter whoever, whether the police or whatever, because if the police come and stand here, the police is not a Superman. He is not a Captain Planet. He can only say stop, stop, stop. At the end of the day, what happens to the traffic? We will only do his part when it is time that we do.
Bernard, whose dreams were altered by an unfortunate incident at the age of 8, remains undeterred. Confined to crutches, he now appeals for personal protective equipment to remain safe on the road.
I go to store and go and buy this reflector and the things that I'm using. With the little money I have, just to take care of the traffic. So, anything somebody thinks is recommendable for a support is almost welcome.
Bernard, the guardian of order, proving that strength is not always measured by physical ability, but by the resilience of the human spirit. Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy Prime.
Now, in a pioneering initiative aimed at combating vaccine misinformation, the Ghana Health Service and UNICEF have introduced the Cranky Uncle game, designed to educate individuals and the general public on vaccine misinformation. This innovative approach seeks to address vaccine hesitancy by fostering critical thinking and awareness of the importance of vaccinations in public health. Rejoice Semefakbesu has more.
Educational tool designed to combat misinformation and promote critical thinking about health topics, particularly in the context of vaccination. The game is part of efforts to address vaccine hesitancy and increase awareness of the importance of vaccinations in public health. The game aims to teach players how to recognize and respond to common arguments and myths related to vaccines and immunization. It encourages critical thinking by presenting players with scenarios where they must evaluate statements about vaccines. Social Behavior Change Officer at the UNICEF Country Office, Idi Idrisu, says the app is another way to reach out to people in the digital space and educate them on crucial health issues.
We learned from COVID, and as we also know, COVID came with so much misinformation and disinformation. So, basically, people were just using common tricks, such as fallacy, conspiracy theories, natural is best, as some of ways that they use to trick people around misinformation. So with these tricks, there was a need for people to be taught to identify misinformation. So in social behavior terms, we term it as pre-bunking. That is, you try to educate people by giving them information to identify those tricks. And the purpose of this app, one, is to kind of support, educate people, thereby promoting vaccine literacy. With UNICEF Social and Behavior Change, we use multiple channels of communication to be able to reach out to mass audience, to large group of people. And remember that we are in an era of digital age where people will want to use digital tools to be able to really understand things that are happening within their environment. And so for us, the app is just an additional way of expanding our reach to cover people who are on the digital space, especially young people who were behind the spread of some of this misinformation during COVID. Because they have access to digital tools, they are able to spread misinformation by just passing on whatever that it is. But with this app, they are able to, they themselves, learn and understand and identify some of these tricks, so that when they know that this material contains mis or disinformation, they are able to even not spread it.
The game typically involves scenarios or statements from a fictional character known as the cranky uncle, who spreads misinformation about vaccines. Players are presented with these statements and must decide whether they are true or false. By engaging with the game, participants learn to distinguish between accurate information and myths surrounding vaccines. The game helps to build skills in evaluating evidence and understanding the importance of immunization. The Cranky Uncle Game app is available on the App Store for Apple phones and on the Google Play Store for Android.
Up next, according to the United Nations Development Programme, Ghana produces 12,710 tons of solid waste daily, but only 10% is collected and disposed of properly, with plastic waste forming a significant portion. Brigadier General Michael Akpachu, head of the Jospong Waste Academy, speaking at the Waste Academy's launch, urged the government to prioritize waste management and enact effective policies to improve the country's sanitation situation. There's more in this report.
To combat the rising sanitary issues, implementing effective and integrated solid waste management systems is imperative to meet complex demands. Public-private partnerships and grants remain key solutions for efficient waste management. Brigadier General Michael Akpachu, head of the Jospong Waste Academy, speaking at the launch of the Jospong Comtech Waste Academy, is advocating intensive sensitization and the formulation of a waste separation policy to ensure effective waste management.
Most of the time we think that Zoom Lion is all that it needs and they should just manage our waste. But policy makers from national level to the municipal and district assemblies must understand that waste management is for all of us. The environment we live in must be protected. So as part of the program, we're going to have interaction with them, seminars and workshops to create an awareness. And we hope that Parliament, as I mentioned, will come out with a legislation that will help us to do waste separation so that we'll be able to have the waste separated right at the source of generation. When that happens, collection and management is easier.
Brigadier General Michael Akpachu advocates further the reintroduction of environmental studies into the basic educational curriculum.
We work with the KNUST and the Vienna Technical University, so they will come with a policy paper which will also help us reintroduce environmental studies in the primary schools. It used to be there, been taken off. And then we also want to get our children, the lower level of kids, right in the primary school, using the Zoom Kids Foundation to create awareness, games and other activities, tree planting, competition, cleaning of the environment, competition, all those things, to be able that our kids are very much abreast. You know, children are very sensitive. If you're able to train our children very well, they can help us, even as parents, to manage our waste.
On her part, Austrian Consulate to Ghana, Rosemary Althner, pledged her outfit's support in aiding the development of the country, adding that plans are advanced in commissioning a consulate office in Ghana.
It's just sad if you drive around and you see all the plastics all over the place. And I'm not thinking that it's the fault of the people. I think is we haven't yet provided everyone the tools nor educate the children about waste management. This is something they can learn. It's the same thing when parents complain about their kids not tidying up their rooms. But do you ask yourself, have they provided them a shelf, a storage, something they can tidy up? Same thing in the schools. If you want the kids to not throw away their plastic and their waste, provide a bin for them so that they can put it in a bin. So it all starts with education and giving the right tools for the sanitation problem we have currently. Austria is working hard on it to open the embassy as soon as possible. And this will definitely enhance their bilateral agreements and politics, and it will help all of us to work better together if we have an embassy in Accra.
Access to information, data and technology remains crucial for efficient waste management. The launch saw the signing of an agreement between the Jospon Group and Comtech to improve waste management in Ghana. Stephen Mentor's report, read to you.
Now, in our final story, the paramount queen mother of Yamfo in the Ahafo region, Nana Darko Ampim II, through the Ohima Darko Foundation, has initiated a bold move expected to encourage more girls in her traditional area and beyond to study engineering programs at the tertiary level. Speaking at the launch of Girls in Engineering at Yamfo, Nana Darko said with the support of the government, organizations and individuals, they would be on track to create a more inclusive and equitable engineering industry. Precious Semevo has more.
Engineering is a problem-solving and innovative discipline that creates solutions to improve lives. However, the field has less female representation. According to the Ghana Institute of Engineers, only 7% of the engineering workforce in Ghana were women as of October 2020. The situation in Yamfo in the Ahafo region, a community that co-hosts the Newmont Ahafo North mines, is worse. However, the Ohima Darko Foundation is to help empower young girls to pursue engineering programs with the launch of Girls in Engineering at Yamfo to offer financial support, guidance, and mentorship to selected girls in Yamfo and beyond. Nana Darko Ampim II is the founder and paramount queen mother of Yamfo.
As a woman of unmet engineering dream, I see the Girls Engineering program as a beacon of hope, a platform that will give young women to perceive their passion for engineering, a fact I couldn't achieve. It will provide them with the guidance, mentorship, and support they need to overcome the challenges they may face on their journey. Through this program, we will nurture their curiosity, ignite their imagination, and equip them with the skills they need to thrive in this dynamic field. It is about changing mindsets, challenging stereotypes, and creating a future where young girls can dream without limitations.
Community Development Officer of Newmont Ahafo North Project, Grace Kabute, admonished the girls to focus on their academic work and take advantage of the many opportunities at the mines.
To advance our inclusion agenda, the Ahafo North Project has committed to progressively employ 50% of its workforce as women. Currently, women make up to 33% of the Ahafo North Project's employee workforce. This also offers opportunities to girls like you to take interest in STEM, build yourself through education, and take advantage of opportunities this project will bring in the near future.
The youngest paramount queen mother in Asante appealed for support to propel the girls and help them realize their dreams in engineering.
Newmont is here, and I see my girls doing the petty works in the mining field. Upon second thought, I realized I need to go for this, coach them, sponsor them, so that they can also go to the university and bag these courses so that they can also go and bag this higher engineering position in the mining field. As far as Newmont Ghana is in Yamfo right now, we are appealing to each and every single one to come to our aid to make these girls' dream come true.
Here are some of the students.
I want to be an engineer when I grow up, but I was thinking about my background and those things. What Nana is doing is really helpful, and I really appreciate it.
I'm very excited about this foundation. It's going to help us to study further in our education.
Precious Semevo, Joy News, Yamfo.
Well, that's how we cap off the news. You can get more of our news on myjoyonline.com. But stay with us for the news review up next, right here on the AM Show. Thank you for staying for the news review right here on the AM show. It's brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they care about your health. That's why they're saying if you're a man, come to them and get prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, come to them and get fertility screening for free. Do you know your fertility status as a woman and even as a man? Some people think, oh, it's all kosher, until you go and bam, you have all kinds of things. Just get yourself checked and you're good to go. Now, you can find out where to locate Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They have branches, fortunately, dotted across the country. Here in Accra, they're at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takra Dianaji Estate, Tema, Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiaman Zama. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And guess who joins me in the studio this morning? Let me give you a fair idea. He has a red beret on. What most people would say beret here. He has a red beret on, which reminds me of a certain Che Guevara. Oh, if you haven't guessed yet, Bernard Mornah of Arise Ghana is my guest. Ben.
Senior.
Yes, in Penifon Kwan, they say half shoe. Or half shoe near me. I want the cameras to.
I have no difficulty. This is half shoe made in.
Yes, so we shall have shoe. What bobra?
That we have shoe way. Yeah, and what tamale.
Yeah, and what tamale. Okay.
Precisely in tamale.
It looks lovely. I'm sorry I'm throwing the spotlight.
No, that's nice. I mean, it's good also to market the source of.
Who did it for you? What's the name of the person behind
it? It is Alex Bachala.
Alex Bachala.
Who did it from Tamale.
It's actually nice. Yes. You would think it was something from...
Because of the psychedelic nature, I chose to... To bring it on your show.
Psychedelic nature. Bernard Mornah. Well, whenever I have this gentleman on any platform, he doesn't cease to make me laugh. But the state of affairs of our country is no laughing matter. Usually on the show, we allow about 1 or 2 minutes for our guests to talk about something topical. I'll give you the opportunity to do that, and then we'll quickly get into the newspapers. What would you like to talk about?
Well, probably two things. One has to do with the bastardization of our constitution and the processes of governance in this country by President Akufo-Addo, that we have virtually 3 official and 4 unofficial arms of government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, and we have the legislature. The executive headed by the president, the legislature headed by the Speaker of Parliament, and the judiciary headed by the Chief Justice. Parliament has done its bit, and by our rules, when Parliament finalizes a bill, the bill is immediately transmitted to the president, and the president has actions to take on the bill, either assent, reject, or pass it to the Council of State with reasons. Now, President Akufo-Addo, through his executive secretary, says that Parliament, having worked on their bill, should cease from trying to submit that bill to the presidency. That, in my opinion, is a coup d'etat. It's a coup d'etat because it means that the president has violated his power to protect or protecting the constitution of Ghana. And it appears that every Ghanaian, all of us, are sitting down with our arms all folded, waiting for President Akufo-Addo, who has more become an autocrat than a democrat, to continue to run the affairs of this nation as if it's a small chiefdom that he's.
But please explain. I mean, when you use certain words, I have to call you either to order or ask you to explain. You say he's become an autocrat rather than
an autocrat because
why?
A democrat follows processes, procedures. And one of the procedures is that once the bill is passed by Parliament, it's immediately transmitted to the president after all errors have been corrected.
Right.
And the presidency receives the bill.
Right.
When you receive the bill, then you have options. Sign, that's assent, or you offer, you have explanation, reason why you will not sign. And then Parliament will take a decision by a certain number whether they should compel you to sign. And when you say that, don't bring it to me, that is autocratic because you don't have that authority to do so. But if you impose that on yourself, that is autocratic, and that deviates from democracy, which is to say that follow the rules and regulations that are laid down.
Right.
That is why I mean that a president who has become more autocratic than a Democrat. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is that we are living in virtually perpetual lights-off. Everybody now leaving home. It's not certain whether you return home to light. We have requested for a timetable from government so that we can have timetable, so that we can schedule our activities. See, when you don't factor electricity in my opinion, these 4 dimensions of economic, social, health, and security, then you will not understand the import of providing a timetable or a schedule that we can be able to monitor. If I am aware that we will not have electricity here today, and we do not have a standby generator, leaving home at the time that you do, by 3 a.m. you are up, and you get to work only to realize that there is no electricity for the rest of the day. Not only have you disturbed yourself, but again, you have spent either fuel or money in transporting yourself here. Which money you could have saved because you are coming to be unproductive for the rest of the day. And so many people living far and near who want to do trading, who are into other things, and dependent on electricity, as soon as they have a schedule, they get to know that within this period around this area, there will not be electricity. So if I'm involved in printing of material, and our football club, Kalibi Sporting Club, wanted to print some materials, we gave the contract to a printing house. It took them more than 12 days when they were supposed to do it in 2 days. When I asked, they said, look, most of the people that gave them jobs to do have come to take the jobs away from them, and they've taken it to China.
One such printing agent told me that he lost a job, a big job.
Yeah.
Because he was printing for one of these foreign entities in Ghana, multinational corporations. They had a fixed timeline, and they wouldn't accept the fact that, oh, because I don't have electricity. Of course, maybe they expect you to have a standby generator or something. But he lost a lot of money.
And probably we even paid surcharge. And so even local printing houses that are getting small to also survive, their jobs have been taken away because you have not given them a determined timetable upon which they can operate.
But Bernard, I think all of that is redundant now. It is useless now because Herbert Crapper, who is now board chair of the ECG, says in the coming days, and let me see whether I can get the bit so I can quote him. You know, Mr. President spoke on this, and then Herbert Crapper also spoke. Quoting him, he says, Ghana's power crisis will end in the next few days. You can quote him on that. ECG's board chairman, the new one, Herbert Crapper, says so. So all of these things you're talking about in Kosiaga, I mean, it's been resolved.
The Minister for Energy, who has oversight over an agency under him, said that they are fixing the challenge, but told us that anyone that is talking about a timetable, we should generate it. So you are expected to generate your timetable. I'm expected to generate my timetable. Your producers and then camera people are expected to generate their timetables and then submit that one to the Minister for Energy.
Do you know the problem with that? The problem, though, is that in my neighborhood, it's been pretty erratic. Sometimes you expect that, oh, the light should be. There are times when the light goes off in the evening, comes briefly at dawn, then right after you leave home, around 6 o'clock, like before 6 o'clock, by the time you get back, they tell you that from 6 in the morning
you have
to
had
sometime in
7 times lights off.
It's been off. So you come and you see that your fridge, things are not cool in there. It's become very difficult.
That's if it's still functioning. In your instance, you may have...
My fridge has developed problems.
Yeah,
the fridge I've used for years.
Yeah, if it's still functioning. But you can return home and your fridge is not functioning. And so
I have a fridge guard on it, so maybe it helps.
So it means you have lost that gadget. ECG will not be held responsible for the extra cost that you are going to incur in trying to fix it. So I do not believe an iota of
you don't believe Herbert Crapper?
Not even a scintilla.
I mean, we've also been told that we don't need money to buy gas. I believe
by Kojo Poku.
Yes. Kojo Poku has said we don't need money to buy gas, but an Energy Commission report we have seen, tells us otherwise. Kojo has said some interesting things. I listened to him, the other day interacting with my colleague Evan Spencer, and I found it curious. He was saying that we were engaging in voodoo mathematics, but you look at the tail of the tape, and I don't get Kojo Poku. Honestly, I don't.
I do know that you don't know voodoo, and I don't know voodoo. But Kojo Poku understands voodoo, and that is why he's engaged.
Why do you think he understands?
That he understands voodoo. That's why he's engaged in voodoo talk. If we are engaged in voodoo mathematics, he's engaged in voodoo talk. You see, our leaders must credit us that the schools they attended, we also attended similar schools. That the knowledge they have, probably our knowledge surpasses what they have. So they should not just come and talk to us as if we do not understand anything.
Right.
See, the ECG boss comes to explain that, look, they owe and they are not able to pay, right? And because they have liquidity challenge, he's even asking institutions like hospitals, parliament, schools, and other places to pay. Otherwise, they will not be able to pay their suppliers. And you come and tell us that the ECG boss, the man directly in there, who says that the challenge is liquidity problem, you say that there is no money problem. If there is no money problem, why is Ghana at the IMF? Why is Ghana engaged in a haircut? Why is there a domestic debt exchange?
Maybe you could also ask, you could ask as we move forward, why is it that even the ECG is being regulated with a cash waterfall mechanism? All of that are part of
So clearly, the challenge is that Ghana is broke. We don't have money to be able, after all, you claim that there is excess capacity in the system.
No, that since 2022, in reality, there's no excess.
So there's no, they claim that there's excess capacity. So you have mopped up the excess capacity. There's no excess capacity. You have not augmented generation. So you actually have generation deficit. In addition to that, the ones that are generated, you are not able to pay because you have liquidity.
Kojo Poku says we shouldn't refer to it as deficit. I'm yet to know what wording he would prefer. But let's get into the papers very quickly. We have about 15 minutes to do that. The Daily Graphic this morning. KPMG audit finds tax revenue increase. SML cleared to continue work. Then, my choice is belief in Ghanaian women, Professor Opoku-Agyeman. Yesterday, coming back into town pretty late, I overheard one of the deputy, I think, organizers of the MPP in one of, I don't know whether it's Tema, suggesting that the NPP had to go for a woman, and she was making a case for that. I guess these are good times for women, at least as far as the pinnacle of political leadership is concerned. I feel it's something we've delayed too much on. Traders laud free SHS policy for bridging education inequality gap. Salaries of first, second ladies, unconstitutional. Supreme Court rules. So I'm just going to be very brief on this one. President Akufo-Addo has directed that the downstream petroleum audit services provided by Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, that is SML, can continue due to the savings it has made to the state. He says, quote, there is a clear need for the downstream petroleum audit services provided by SML. The Ghana Revenue Authority and the state have benefited from these services since SML commenced providing them. It also says, there has been an increase in volumes of 1.7 billion litres and an increase in tax revenue to the state of 2.45 billion Ghana cedis. KPMG also observed that there were qualitative benefits, including a 24/7 electronic real-time monitoring of outflow and partial monitoring of inflows of petroleum products at depots where SML had installed flow meters and 6 levels of reconciliation done by SML. In terms of further directives, the president, who accepted the recommendations of KPMG, also directed that the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services, which had not yet been commenced and no payments made, may be terminated. That is the first.
Where's the report?
Just hold for me. We have a 5-pager to deal with. Just hold for me. Then there's also, let's quickly go to page 13. Salaries of first and second ladies unconstitutional. Now, spouses of the president and the vice president are not public officers under Article 71 of the 1992 Constitution, and as such cannot be entitled to salaries and other benefits and privileges charged from the Consolidated Fund, the Supreme Court has ruled. Consequently, a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court, chaired by Chief Justice Gertrude Saki-Tokonu, has declared as unconstitutional Parliament's approval to pay salaries to the First Lady and the Second Lady, since they are not recognized under the 1992 Constitution to receive salaries. Finally, it's added that the work of the Emoluments Committee of Parliament is limited to recommending the salaries and other benefits and privileges of only public office holders. So, this country, we joke too much.
So the vehicles the officers, the security persons, and all that we attach to first and second ladies. And since this has come to light, we will see that probably the crimes committed then, we cannot take a backward action. But immediately
you
after...
You cannot retrospectively address it.
So soon after this ruling, it means that the vehicles that we have allocated to the first and second ladies must be seized. They must not carry them. Otherwise, they will be violating the spirit.
The Supreme Court's ruling.
Supreme Court, the
its
spirit.
Determination.
And that's one. The bodyguards, the soldiers that you see around cantonments, hovering around the first and second ladies, are public officials, and they are not supposed to be assigned to the private offices of these persons. They must be taken away if we are to consider the Supreme Court ruling any serious. The drivers...
But this specifically talks about emoluments, right?
But
are you suggesting that I mean, when Kamala Harris, who is vice president, when her husband, I mean, there is some security detail.
If she's moving...
He benefits from her
in the house.
detail.
But they don't give you for your private office. Do you see the kind of vehicles that the First Lady uses, provided by the state? If you are going in the company of your husband, no problem. If you are going in the company of your wife, no problem. The state can afford all those expenditure. But when it is you alone, and it is not, in fact, what should the First Lady come and tell us? Nobody gave her a mandate to lead the country. So when we organize official events and it's the First Lady that is coming to talk to us, for me, it's hot air. Because she speaks, and you cannot hold her accountable that, look, we voted for you, or through our vote you were appointed, therefore we should hold you accountable for your words. So when the First Lady comes to speak at your function, for me, it is only to say that the president's wife has come, but nothing more. Because the state cannot hold the words of the First Lady any serious. And you cannot use it in any court to say that, hey, the First Lady said this, we want to see action. It cannot happen.
But they have also, all the way from Nana Akufo-Addo Agyemang Rawlings to...
There was no Supreme Court ruling.
Akufo-Addo, they have played
there was no Supreme Court
pivotal rules. Rebecca Akufo-Addo has done a lot when it comes to education.
That is
health,
a private role.
And I'm saying that, shouldn't that count for something?
No, that is private role. Why? You have not done so many things for your community. Your wife has not done similar. I have done several things for my community, so because of that, I should be given all kind of protection because I am a philanthropist. So if the First Lady or Second Lady decide to become a philanthropist...
You are an ordinary citizen.
Yes, so therefore, she is just an ordinary wife to the president. Or it cannot be said the same. So once the Supreme Court said that there is no constitutional rule, otherwise, we are setting a very terrible precedent.
Right.
That people at the apex, we can ask our wives to also be put on salary. They should be entitled to term benefits. And I think that this clarity by the Supreme Court settles matters. So from now on, we should be able to minimize the expenditure around the First and Second Ladies. And also monitor the Chief of Staff's office and the allocations they give to these offices because they are not constitutional.
Okay, let me quickly do the story so we can get a move on. My choice is belief in Ghanaian women, Professor Akufo-Addo. I'm sure you followed some of what she's been saying. And just to quote her, she has said, for example, that she and John Mahama will not tolerate corruption, that she is not going to be like a vice president who says he's a driver's mate and so he can't take responsibility. The former president at that outdooring came up to say that, you know, very flowery things that they would possibly be doing, that he would even place her in charge of certain strategic ministries. In fact, he would place her in charge, not the ministry, but oversight responsibility over, if I'm not mistaken, education, gender, women, and some of those, in addition to the traditional roles we know. But the story says the NDC has introduced Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman to the electorate as its running mate for the December 7 presidential election at a well-attended forum in Accra last night. Accepting the challenge to partner the former president for the upcoming elections, she pledged to repay the abiding confidence reposed in her, quote, with loyalty, understanding, and a devotion to duty. What do you make of this? I mean, it goes on and on. You can grab it.
I listened to the speech whilst coming here. I was replaying it. Fortunately, your online session, they provide a voice section. So I put on my Bluetooth and I could listen. And I listened and listened repeatedly. I think that it makes good political soundbite. This is not the same Nana that was introduced in the year 2020.
What has changed?
You can see that she's become more aggressive, more assertive, and probably more punchy than she was in the 2020 when she was introduced. In addition to that, she has taken on some adult stacks of promising, for instance, telling the women of Ghana that they are going to have a women's development bank. It will be managed solely and entirely by women. And so as a young person who will become the next president of Ghana, let me, from today, also assure the young people.
Oh, you aspire to be president of Ghana?
I will be president.
You will be president?
I will be president.
I see.
Mark it.
Let me just ask, though, because President Akufo-Addo said he would put up a cathedral for God. So nowadays, did you see this in any dream? Did you look in a crystal ball? Is it coming out of faith? Is it, what gives you this assurance?
After my many years of political struggle and activism, I have become accustomed to lies and truths. And I do listen to majority of the people of Ghana, even when the intention was not made. Many were calling, when are you declaring your intention to contest? And so as soon as I said I was going to contest, the outpour of people across, and I'm surprised that you are unaware, because I know that you'll be one of the champions of that campaign.
I see.
Yeah, I am convinced about that, because you are so disappointed in the 32 years of governance by the NDC and the MPP that you cannot tolerate it any longer, because they bring nothing new. It is a race to the bottom. They blame each other all the time. But let me put that aside. When I launch my campaign on the 25th of May, then you will get to understand more. On Professor Nana, she wants to create a women's development bank. We will create a youth development bank. I don't think that creating these individualistic banks is the way to go. Look, if banks are to function effectively, you will let the banks function. Look, we have a Greek development bank. We have a national development bank. We actually used to have a merchant bank, remember? And so these banks, if they are well positioned, they will be able to attend to the needs of the youth. They will be able to attend to the needs of the women. And then when you get to these banks, you'll be able to limit yourself. Why do we need to be creating banks? That is how come that the MPP can come and tell you that they are creating a national development bank, when in actual fact they are collapsing some banks. What is this craze about creating banks when we are actually collapsing some?
Right. Let's get into your stack of papers. Any quick stories you'd like to run our way?
Well,
you have the Ghanaian Times, you have the New Finder. So
the New Finder says that the same SML minimized under declarations but needs review. I'm waiting to see the report.
Right.
Or you have the report. Because if we don't see the report, what did the president actually come out with? So the people of Ghana, particularly...
We have a 5-pager to contemplate, but we'll get into details of that and find out what else remains.
Then we will prosecute corrupt officials, Professor Opoku Ajiman. Then Dr. Bawumia, Pope Francis holds talks in the Vatican to strengthen diplomatic ties so that the National Cathedral can be constructed? Or what is it? I sincerely don't get it. Your visit to the papacy has no, well, we are talking about religion, so I will leave it like that. On the Ghanaian Times, outcome of Ghanaian Times expose, dismissed pregnant student back to school following GS directive.
I think it was a 14-year-old or something.
Yeah,
I hear it was a rape or something, and then she was told not to come to school. I found that soundly, roundly disgusting, if what I think is what happened.
But if she was not raped, scientifically, we are told that a lady of 9 years can get pregnant. And so if by some sexual intercourse she gets pregnant, that means that her education should be terminated. That means that her unborn child should suffer the difficulties of a mother who has not been educated and probably will not have a better life. I think that some of these decisions we take at the Ministry of Education or by our schools.
So the school took the decision, yeah, the ministry has reversed.
Yeah, it is the GS. I think that is certainly untenable, and I want to commend the GS for what they have done. Then Miss Julian Esiam, GRA boss, Ghana Revenue Authority. Resident persons risk prosecution for failure to disclose incomes.
You know, she's going after, taxes from there. How do you feel about that?
Some of the people have lived illegally in some countries, and they have come back home. They are trying to manage their illegal existence, and you come and start chasing them. You are going to expose them and what they have done in those countries, and that can cause its own problems. So,
yeah, but wrong is wrong, right?
And so you want to look at it. I mean, when you live in a country where there is no hope, where people have to go through the desert in order to escape your inability to provide jobs for them, when people have to stow away through the sea, people have to hang under aircrafts in order to escape the difficulties in the system, and then they get somewhere and they are able to find some greener pastures. When they come back home, you want to come and use your inability to mobilize revenue to support your profligate expenditure to now go after them. At the end of the day, you destroy their lives. You may have a what do we call it, a hit back, but that is it.
Maybe we can do a final thing you can look at. And
President inaugurates second phase of 15 MWP Kaliu solar power plant. That is my area.
Okay.
That's my constituency. In fact, it is the village next to my village.
Yours,
yeah.
Right.
So I know this project well. The first time he inaugurated the first phase, I was there. The second phase, unfortunately, I'm not aware, otherwise I would be there. But in the first phase inauguration, we noticed that whilst the solar is generated from Kaliu, not 1 watt of that solar.
Megawatt.
1 watt.
Not even a watt.
Is consumed in the local.
By the people in that area.
So we are told that Newmont became the off-taker. And so power is generated there, Newmont takes it away, and the people don't. In fact, on the day that they were commissioning that project, there were continuous lights off in the area. And yet, solar is generated, electricity is generated in the community. How do you generate electricity from a community and the community continues to live in lights off? It doesn't add up.
I mean, it's not peculiar to them, though, let me say, because when you look at other institutions, whether it's Great Co or the VRA and the rest, the fact that they are located in a community doesn't necessarily mean you do know that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
but I agree that it does not make sense
this one we
for
produce.
You to be in a community.
Greco doesn't generate electricity. Greco does what we call transmission.
I get it.
Do you understand?
But I'm saying
Akosombo, or let me call it VRA, they generate electricity. So you don't generate electricity in a community and deny them that electricity and export or send the electricity elsewhere. Why did the people give you their facility to generate the electricity? Even their health, what do we call it, institutions cannot benefit from it. It doesn't add up.
Anyway, let me wrap with this story. And I have someone that I always know. You know, some of the people who send in messages. By the way, your colleague, your friend, Osajefo Oliver Bakavomawo is watching you.
My brother.
I see him online. But sometimes I wonder whether the political polarization in this country will ever come off, the scales will ever fall off our eyes, whether you are looking at the NDC, MPP, or any other party. And whether we can think beyond the box of politics. This person whose message I'm about to read, Teacher Kujo Tepa in Yinasoso, constantly sends in messages. He has an NPP banner. You go and I like checking out these people. You go and see, oh, this one NDC fanatic, this one NPP fanatic. It's tied to the Daily Guide story that says Baumia meets Pope Francis in historic Vatican visit. Then he comes to put here, the Islamic candidate of NPP has been called upon, which is not, by the Catholic Pope of Italy, signifying that Dr. Baumia is a chosen candidate to win the election in 2024. Sometimes I look at these comments coming from both sides of the divide.
Catholic
and I
Pope
wonder
of Italy.
That's what he is saying.
Well,
I am Catholic, so I know very well that
Pope
this
is not of Italy.
This is religious hogwash. But I sometimes I see these comments. I don't read them often, but once in a while I want to, and it makes me wonder. How are people thinking, young people thinking in this country?
Professor Vitus Nambigne once said of the University of Cape Coast, he once said that He knows that there will be a revolution. But that revolution cannot succeed when people have become bigots, when people simply are being mentored by the same corrupt group of people. How do you expect them to be any different? So this kind of mentality can sit well with Vitus's pronouncement. That's why the people who are mentoring him, the people who are able to give him something to survive on, it doesn't matter what wrong they do. That is where his belly is taken care of. And that is how come you can see such bigoted political statements coming from.
Well, we have to go now. Any final words for us as we go?
Well, I think that the destiny of Ghana is in our hands, not in the hands of those who are ruling us. It is our collective duty to save Ghana from the current economic, social, cultural, and probably disillusionment that has confronted our nation. President Akufo-Addo is a disaster of a leader. His tenure is coming to an end. I have never advocated for any unwarranted overthrow, but we cannot have a repeat of what President Akufo-Addo has been. And in the instances that the vice president is a mate who has never learned how to drive, it is not possible that you can hand over the steer to him.
All right. Bernard Mornah, thank you.
Thank you,
for
boss.
Coming. Bernard Mornah is with Arise Ghana. Before we go, happy birthday to Gertrude Ajay of Osu Castle Road. God bless you. And that is from Eugenia. She's with our makeup department. From Eugenia to you, and from all of us to you, Gertrude Ajay. Also, happy birthday, Princella Adams of Innov Solutions Limited. It's in Ghana that I realized there was a name called, a name Princella. So Princella Adams, wishing you a fantastic day filled with joy, laughter.
Do you have that?
Pardon me?
Which other country do you have that?
And I'm saying that it's only in Ghana that I found out that there's a name Princella. But it makes us unique. It makes us very unique, you know.
I thought Princella. You found that one in
no other country. Ukraine. Let's not even get into the pronunciations of names. So Princella Adams of Innov Solutions Limited, wishing you a fantastic day filled with joy, laughter, and all the wonderful things. Is from Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, who is with our sports team. Right before we go, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Their branches here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takra Dianaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiaman Zima. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the end of the news review and the start of sports. Up next, do stay.
Welcome back on the AM show. It's the first time you're seeing me today, so good morning. And today on our big stories, we have AM Exclusive, as we do on Thursdays. This morning on AM Exclusive, my guest is Dr. Antoinette Tsibu-Darko, the Executive Director of Dankwa Institute and Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. Looking lovely in red lipsticks. Good morning to you.
My dear.
It's good to have you in the studio with us.
It's amazing to be here today.
Okay. How have you been doing? Have you been affected by the erratic power supply in any way yet?
Well, occasionally in the evenings, but yesterday, 24 hours, I didn't experience it. So.
How do you feel about that?
Well, in the beginning, I felt anxious. I'm a deep party person, and taking into account the promise that the new patriotic party has made, and how we've been able to hold our promise for 7 years, for me, it felt like at this very last hour, let's not disappoint the good people of Ghana. They've had so much faith in us when it comes to power. So let's keep the power. Let's do all we can to keep the lights on. So I was very excited when yesterday the ECG board chairman, Honorable Herbert Karpa, came out, and he's also the Deputy Minister for Energy. So when he talks, you can see the synergy in what he's saying. He comes out to say, it's a challenge. We are fixing it. We apologize sincerely, unreservedly for all the confusion. Because, you know, it makes everybody anxious to say, what next? Do I now have to start looking for a generator and etc.? We don't want to go back to that again. Yeah. So I'm really happy he's come up with some assurance for us to, you know that it's a temporary thing and it will be fixed.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that it was him that was making such remarks and not the minister himself.
I think the minister is not around. I'm not too sure, but yes. But I think that in the absence of the minister, deputy minister, ECG board chair, we need that. Someone has to say something. Yeah. So I think leaving speculation, anxiety, no. So I think it's right that we hear something and then we know what next. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. Let's hope that it's fixed as soon as possible. But what have you been up to with your charity work? Your work with persons with disability and other things for your foundation?
Okay, so persons with disability for now, I think I've put a lot of different things on hold, especially as my political career in an election year has really picked up a lot. A lot of work that I did for persons with disability was actually born out of a personal inspiration. So I have a daughter who has a disability. Okay. So we picked up a lot of work on assisting children who have hearing impairments, haven't been able to speak as a result of this hearing impairment, and what we can do in directing them. So my belief mainly has always been the fact that all is not lost until you've tried all options, you know. And I came to realize, actually, it also was inspired by me collecting data in the Western region about 12 years ago and coming across this amazing little boy. And I found him very brilliant, very smart. But all I could see was his mom was just driving him all the time outside, out of the house. You know, and when I was there interviewing her, I realized,
him how?
Like she kept telling him,
pushing him away?
Remember, you know. So I kind of realized that she was embarrassed that I was there. And he kept coming in. He won't talk. And every time he came in with sheep, goats, you know, they would come together. And then she'd say, okay, and then he would drive all of the animals away and move away with them. So eventually I asked her, what is wrong with him? And then she laughed. And I said, oh, she should please tell me what is wrong with him. And then she told me, oh, he's not normal. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, he's normal. Because he keeps coming. And he has a mechanism of driving the animals. And I don't think that's just something you must take for granted.
It should be a gift, if anything.
I'm telling you. So to cut a long story short, eventually I realized that this was a perfectly normal child who only had a hearing problem. So because he can't hear what the mother says, he acts out of frustration. And because of that, he can't speak. So she sent him to school, etc. And I have the same situation. So I explained to her that not hearing does not make you not a normal person. I mean, it's not abnormal.
No, it's not.
It's a disability. So, but you can overcome it with so many ways. I'm happy to say that child finally went to sign language school and he's doing very well. He's almost 15 now. Yes.
Wow.
Every now and then I check on them. But this was a mother who didn't have so much, but she still could afford. Because you know, School for the Deaf is free. It's government sponsored. So all she had to do was to know. You know, so for me, understand. So I realized that knowledge alone and ignorance tends to make people, you know, treat such disabilities in a very wrong way. If we approach it in a wrong way, you can be disabled, you can have any disability whatsoever, but you can lead a very normal life.
So that's what you do?
That's what I do. Okay. So that is more like my, you know, NGO charity research work. Okay. But besides that, I am a researcher. Academically, I'm a researcher.
Yes.
And I choose to research on social issues. Sometimes issues on disability come across, but I've been very keen on researching on social issues. I've done a lot of research in child marriage. I've done a lot of research in poverty dynamics. The child marriage is a publication.
Not just the child marriage, that you've done a lot of research, natural resources management, gender and agriculture, social protection, decentralized. But I'd like us to focus on two, child marriage and natural resources.
Okay.
And if you indulge me, let me just read an excerpt from your article, Downing My Tree for Gold.
Yes, please.
And it says, for decades, the story has been told of farms being turned into mining concessions, but a lot remains unsaid in the detailed issues and intricacies that influence the decision-making process of the farmers. Through a qualitative engagement of cocoa farmers, small-scale miners, both legal and unlicensed galamseyers, and financiers of gold mining, perceptions and lived experiences, factors contribute to the decision-making process unfolds in complex stories of immediate wealth gains sacrificed for intergenerational wealth. What do you mean by this? And what is your article, Down in My Tree for Gold, about?
Okay, so Down in My Tree for Gold was inspired by a collaborative research work with a colleague from the Forestry Division in the United States, another colleague from the University of Calgary. She and I did our master's PhD together. And then also a colleague in Ghana who works in the mining sector.
Okay.
And forestry, obviously, from the USA, it had a bit of funding. And we decided to also use our manpower as our contribution. And what the research mainly sought to do was to establish the fact that if you have a cocoa farm and you put commercial trees, now the idea is that commercial trees offer a certain shade to cocoa and actually help in cocoa growth. So it gives the cocoa tree itself a better fruiting capability during the season, as well as protect. You know, there's a lot of cocoa. Sometimes you need the overhead cover, exactly. So the idea was that if you put commercial trees in cocoa farms, it serves that purpose of giving shade to the cocoa. At the same time, after the lifespan of the cocoa tree, you still have some value on the land with your commercial trees. So we talk about commercial trees, especially of farm, wawa, you know, the timber. That would also give value to your land. So it was a project that was started, and a lot of these, in fact, the trees were given to the cocoa farmers on a free basis. So you put it on your cocoa farm, and then they were thought to measure the trunk of the tree and the height of the tree so that you are able to calculate the value of each tree on your cocoa farm, and that adds value to your land. So it was a very interesting project. And in southwestern Ghana, in a lot of the mining communities that I went to, it was a very, very popular thing, especially when you go from Elembele. I went to a place called Navrongo, Cocoa Land. I really enjoyed it. I was in about 7 communities. I even went all the way to the Bia Forest Reserve. So this was in, you know, different parts of southwestern Ghana.
How long did it take? The entire project?
The entire project, the project itself, before I went, there had already been the baseline, you know, some form of baseline. So what I did was more like an end line. After the project had ended for about, I think, 2 years after. And then I got in touch with these, my friends, and went. So by the time we went, you could identify trees that had been growing for over 4 or 5 years. So you could see the height. And speaking to the farmers, they had belief and conviction that this was a right thing for them. But then, of course, as researchers, we don't just go looking at this. So it was a comprehensive study. And one of the objectives of the study was to ask ourselves, what will make a cocoa farmer cut their tree for gold? So that is where my article comes from, Down in My Cocoa Tree for Gold. And in recent times, this nexus about mining cocoa, would you give up your land for mining? We see that cocoa production in Ghana, it's been a huge issue, has gone down drastically. And one of the reasons has been that a lot of the lands have been given up for mining. So for me, this is the time to really write about this issue. It is not as simple as we think it is, that a cocoa farmer will just get up and decide that I'm giving up my land for mining because I found gold. Neither is it easy or simple for government to say, don't give up your land for gold. The decision making, or what I call the decision pathway, is full of a lot of complexities, which we haven't really delved into. And I'm seeing that from this study and from the reasons and the complex issues that I'm unearthing and investigating, it would give a proper policy direction, both for agric and for mining sector, to come together and make more constructive and sustainable, you know, policy decisions that would help make sure that the cocoa industry is protected and at the same time the mining industry is able to continue.
Is it largely a financial issue for these farmers?
It's not largely financial, and that's why you see what I have put in my study as intergenerational wealth. If you see the abstract I sent. The issue of intergenerational wealth has become a huge question in Ghana. So it's not largely financial. Yes, eventually it does delve into some financial issues. But you see, our land system, our inheritance system, means that if I have a cocoa farm of 40 acres today and my children inherit it, the 40 acres is further divided by my children.
Yes.
Unless they decide that one of them should be the only one who takes it. The division continues. So the breakdown of intergenerational wealth alone is a demotivation for maintaining the cocoa farm. You see, because eventually what you used to get from the cocoa farm keeps diminishing, not because there's a reduction in cocoa price, but it's because the size of your farm keeps getting smaller. So your yield also keeps getting less. There's also the fact that our cocoa tree crops itself, some of them do not come as healthily as we want them to be.
Okay.
So you speak to some farmers and she tells you that after nurturing a cocoa farm, just after a cocoa tree, just when the tree is getting to 8 years, and it's about the 7th, 8th year when it starts to fruit, then you realize that there's a disease. So you've lost 8 years of hard labor. Do you understand? So that investment over a whole generation, I should tell you that in that 8 years, I have sent my child to school and she's reached at a stage where I need a lot of capital and money to even push her further. And this is what happens. Whereas if I had gone into mining, I would have made immediate gains.
Quick money.
Quick money.
Yeah.
You know, so and that money I would have made would have pushed my child. She'll tell you it takes my child from living here because my child gets a better future. I don't want my child to be a cocoa farmer. That's also another issue about intergenerational wealth.
Right.
In our traditional society, we have gone through a system where if I'm a cocoa farmer, I believe my children will be cocoa farmers. I actually bequeath my wealth to them to be cocoa farmers.
Yes.
It's the same in the fishing sector. So if you look at these traditional economic activities, fishing, mining, trading, a lot of these are intergenerational economic activities. Children learn it by... That has also changed. Our society has opened. And here I even talk about the effect of free senior high school, exposing people to even more opportunities and taking them exactly away from traditional work. So it is actually a very complex decision. It's not about the fact that I find gold on my land and I give it up. When you talk to the farmers, they go through a lot of decision-making processes. For a lot of them, it's not about cocoa today, gold tomorrow, I give up my land. You know. Some of them go through 2 years of battle. And then again, when you come to even systems, our land inheritance systems, you know that our traditional authorities are still the ones who give the final say on land. So we have lands that people have been farming on for 50 to 60 years, but it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the clan, to the stew. So the decision-making is even not their right. Eventually, it rests at the feet of the traditional authority to say that I'm giving up this whole land for mining, and they are all caught in it. Besides that, you also go to a lot of farms where you find out that my cocoa farm is doing well. The cocoa farm beside me is not doing well. Eventually, some gold is found there. Mining starts there. The water, the chemicals that are being used for mining seep into my cocoa farm. So within 3 years, I see that my cocoa farm, my yield is going down, my land is no longer valuable.
Right.
So I'm also eventually against all my, my desires that I would never go into mining. I eventually also have to give up my land because after all, I'm not getting the yield that I used to, and I can see that my neighbor is doing well, and after all, my land, so all of these things influence. Some of them also talk about...
Dr. Darko, if I leave you, go
I
on
can go on about my
this.
research. I'm very passionate about it.
Yes. When are you publishing it? I would love to read it. It
So,
sounds like an interesting read.
Currently, the paper is almost 80% done. I'm writing it with my colleagues again. So we actually have published one already. We've published one in the Journal of Society and Natural Resources. But that one we titled, I think the title is, When Will My Tree Grow? For me to benefit from it. But it was focusing more on the tree crop industry. So the fact that you've put commercial trees inside the cocoa farm, but the farmer is asking you, when will my tree grow for me to benefit from it?
Like
so even with the trees, even with the commercial trees, we are still talking about a lifelong investment. But my paper, Downing My Cocoa Tree for Gold, I'm hoping will be out before the end of this year.
Okay, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
So the other thing that we should focus on now is child marriage. I know you've followed the issue about the Wolomo.
Yes.
But my question to you is, in as much as the prevalence of child marriage seems to be declining, because, I mean, according to UNICEF, 1 in 5 girls are given away in child marriages every year. What really is the root cause of the persistence, or I mean, the parts of the country who still hold on to these child marriages? What is the deep-rooted cause why they cannot let go of this thing? Because to them, it is cultural or traditional, and it's a part of them. Is it a lack of understanding that these children, these girls, need to be in school and have, the opportunity to live and reach the age where they can, decide for themselves? Or there's just something fundamentally wrong with our culture? What is it?
You see, what I always say about child marriage, and in my research work, I talk about the fact that there's push factors and there's pull factors.
Okay.
And I base it on the economic theory or the economic argument that in every society where you have factors that push a phenomenon to exist, it persists. At the same time, if you have factors that pull, what we call pull factors, they attract it, it will continue to persist.
Okay.
And that is the reason why child marriage would not leave.
Would not leave?
No. We have both pull and push factors in our society that encourage the phenomenon to continue. Now, let me describe some of the pull and the push factors that I'm talking about. So when it comes to culture, as you rightly said, it is a pull factor.
Okay.
So it consistently attracts. When you talk about push factors, the highest or the most prevalent push factor is poverty.
Right.
So financial gains that you can get from engaging in a relationship as a child. And you'd be surprised to know that in some of the societies where we went to, it was the parents who pushed the children into such relationships.
For their own gain?
Exactly, for their own gain. Or because at the end of the day, when you are 16, 17, what are you doing at home? What are you doing at home? So if you're not getting an education, then the best thing is for you to have a relationship and to get married. And that is what the findings of the study told us. Besides that, teenage pregnancy happened to be a push factor. So if you do get married, or if you do get, not married, if you get pregnant in a traditional setting, you have to get married. The next thing is for you to get married because, in urban Ghana, where the incidence of child marriage is lower, we don't seem to understand the fact that in our traditional setting, there's still a bit of stigmatization with a female or a woman getting pregnant without having a partner.
Right.
Okay. But in our traditional setting, they still hold it in a lot of value.
Yeah.
If you do get pregnant, you would end up getting married. Your parents would make you get married. So you would speak to the parents. We interviewed parents. They said, well, she got pregnant. I'm not going to keep her at home. She must go and get married.
So where does the law come in here? Because, I mean, I still want to reference this issue because it was a recent issue of national interest.
Exactly. For me, the lacuna in the law is about the fact that the law itself says that you cannot get married until you are 18.
Right.
But if you realize the law also, when you are 16, you are an adult. And you take decisions as an adult. So between 16 and 18 years, that is where the law fails to address a specific issue. So you get married at 16, and it is against the law. But you get married after 16, you are also an adult. You are no longer a child. So that lacuna for us when we did the study was very interesting. So in a very funny way, you find out that you can't really penalize people specifically. Apart from that, exactly, because of the loopholes that exist.
Yeah.
Besides that, our cultural values and our cultural rules and laws, they are so varied and they are not written, but they exist and we are supposed to adhere to them. And we respect them. We have to adhere to them. It is what has grown our society to what it is today. And in fact, the breakdown of a lot of these cultural values has also caused child marriage in a lot of ways. Because in societies where they still do things like the child, like the, you know what we call bragro, puberty rights and etc., you wouldn't dare go and have, you wouldn't engage in sex before marriage. You would be very careful because you still, you know. But in societies where all of these puberty rights and, you know, all of these things are broken down today, we don't do it again. Sex before marriage is not a big thing anymore. So common now. Exactly. Yeah. But on the contrary, on the other hand, we also have cultural values that allow children to be betrothed for spiritual reasons, to fetishes and etc., like we saw. Okay. So then it also becomes, you know, a reverse. So culture, yes, will protect us from it, but at the same time, culture also leads us to it. So that's why I said it's a push and pull thing. And you cannot but put yourself in the middle and contextualize every situation before you make a decision. So if you rush and generalize, you'll be wrong because it varies across. Even within Ghana, it varies across. The root causes vary across.
So we will never see a time when this child marriage issue is not part of us. Like you said, it will not go away.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think, I strongly believe that criminalizing it would even be wrong. I think, oh yes, I think it's more about education. Right. It's more about sensitization. Right. It's more about opening opportunities for children. I'm also doing another research where, this time I didn't do, it's not a primary research where I collected a lot of field data, but I'm using the Ghana Living Standard Survey, which is a huge data set. And what I'm doing is I'm testing the relationship between age at first marriage, which is child marriage, and then the free senior high school policy. Okay. So I want to see if the policy has helped increase age at first marriage, then it means it is a positive influence on child marriage.
We'll probably come back to free senior high school policy if we have some time. Yes, but I want us to get into politics a bit. Yesterday, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman was unveiled as the running mate for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Let's take a listen to some of the things that she said, and then I'll come back to you for your reaction.
Please.
So
yes, please.
Enjoy or listen to Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman now.
In the advancement of self-serving ambition, declare to the whole world that I was only the driver's mate. You will find the lack of intimidation of opposing voices. You will find serious investment and practice to enable a digitized economy and society. The reports will go on to point at housing projects, including the famous Saglemi housing complex, and even those that somebody has happily raised to make room for a presumed. John and I have agreed that whoever has participated in the plunder of the state must be held accountable. And my friends, this is not a threat, it is a promise.
So that was Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, the running mate to Mahama. Correction there. What are your thoughts on her choice, one, as the running mate? Some of the things that she mentioned. I took a second look at the entire speech. She started by saying that it's great that she's a woman. It's more like an added value because we've seen what women in power can do. You yourself have been a woman in politics, grooming some women in politics. And then she focuses on the issues of where Ghana stands as we are now, what she would do differently, combining her powers with Mahama, and then ended by saying that being a woman, you know, sort of augments everything that she says she would do. How does all this sit with you?
Let me say that, first of all, I congratulate the NDC for having finally selected a running mate. I think following them from the years before, and Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman being the running mate in 2020, I was hoping that she would be the running mate again in 2024. So I congratulate her. Okay. I actually meet her at functions and we speak.
Okay.
Oh yes, I admire her a lot. She's an amazing person. I don't have any. I think also as an academic, you look up to other academics who have.
You have that in common.
Exactly. Yeah. We're both academics. So, Professor, congratulations. On her speech, I think it's born out of a conviction that this is a path that I would follow. And I pray and hope that she'll be given the chance to do that. Because in my analysis, Professor Jenano Pukwa-Jiman's, she was a minister.
Yes.
And I look at some of her issues that she had as a minister. And I wonder if this was born out of challenges, or it was born out of the fact that she wasn't given room to do what she wanted to do. So if she's deeply convinced that this is the path that she's going to follow with the flag bearer, ex-President John Mahama, then I sincerely hope that she'll be able to do it.
Okay.
She had issues, and I don't want to go into a tall list of them. Okay. But even, I think the part where I would talk more about is the fact that special schools, school for the deaf and dumb, were even denied feeding grants from 2014 to 2016.
Okay.
And it was this administration that came to clear that. I think some of these things for persons with disabilities, you should look at some of these. I mean, so for me, if you say this is what you would do, we hope and pray that you will be able to do it. But your record in the past, for me, is not convincing that you are going to have the room and the space. I will not question capability, not at all. Okay. But I think the room and the space and the leeway to do all that she had said she would do would be very, very good if she gets it. That said, the issues of the administration or of the government that she's coming with is nothing to be so excited and happy about. So I am wondering how she's going to overcome all of those issues and ensure that she's able to do as she has said. Women in politics. Yeah. It's a very long journey. I am in the space now myself, and even more so to be what I call a pracademic.
Okay.
A pracademic means a practicing academic. So you speak into policy and social issues by being in politics.
Right.
So I see Professor Nanajin as an amazing pracademic, managing to merge the two. So, and a woman, a female, and not giving up, resilience, strength, and saying that I will do it and I will continue to do it. And I think it speaks a lot, not because we come from different parties, but for women in general, it is very important that we ask ourselves, how do we chart this path? Will we be given the chance and opportunity to work, and our gender would never be used, against us to say, I said it. It's a woman, that's why it's happening that way. So for me, those are some of the key things that, or challenges that I see that women in politics, we continue to face it. Sometimes it's even not recognized. You can't even see it, which means it's hidden.
Very
but
subtle,
it is there.
But
it's very subtle, exactly. But it is there, So as often as possible, you just have to gloss over it and continue with that same great strength and voice. You have an aim, you have an objective. Just continue on that path. Yeah.
I hear you that she didn't do as much as she could do in her time in the Ministry of Education. But do you think that being a woman gives her a unique selling proposition or gives the NDC some sort of advantage over the NPP? Also on the back that you are yet to unveil your running mates, but do you think that as a woman, and looking at the disadvantages and the number of calls from civil society organizations, individuals saying that it's time for us to, give women the opportunity. We still don't know when this affirmative action bill will be passed into law, among all these other issues. Do you think that her position as a woman gives her advantage over the NPP?
I don't think so. I mean, from my research, and I've done a lot of research, both as a social development analyst and also in politics. In fact, one of my unique capabilities has been how I bring socioeconomic indicators and I superimpose it over polling, over voter choices, and I ask myself, what are the socioeconomic reasons that would inspire you, a voter, to decide to vote for the MPP or the NDC? And I don't see that in my research. I don't see the fact that having a running mate, I haven't seen that. Maybe it's yet to happen, I don't know. But what I would say is voters don't choose because of gender. I think they choose more the main indicators or the main reasons that determines, or the factors, the main factors that determine voter choices, I realize is campaign promises, party affiliation. If people are deeply affiliated to your party, it becomes sometimes very difficult. Of course, we have the margin of floating voters as well, but there's a lot of people who are party faithful, and it doesn't matter who you bring, they will vote for the person. And then manifesto, I mean, that's campaign promises. Performance, both your past performance and your current performance. Economic issues, we always delve into that as well. Those are still the strong determinants of voter choices. We haven't grown a society where people are influenced by gender. It's more about competence, trust in the candidate's capability to deliver. Interestingly, I've also come to realize that the good people of Ghana, Ghanaian voters, are more focused on the presidential candidate. The vice presidential candidate exactly adds to it. But what I come to see is exactly the vice presidential candidate is more with the party faithful. You know, so the vice presidential candidate energizes the base of the party itself, the support. So your party faithful stay with you when they are okay with your vice. But the flag bearer and the presidential candidate is the one who carries the vote.
Let's wait and see how that goes. Now, you're executive director of the Darko Institute. Just 2 days ago, the Darko Institute came out with some research data
that's about a week
governments
ago,
using borrowed funds prudently. And I just want to read a quote and then come to you for your reaction to that. It says that, if I could just find it, great. That the reality is that the trajectory of financial resource management under the NPP government from 2017 to present has seen a far more modest addition to Ghana's debt stock, averaging about 10.68% annually. Is this an accurate representation of what we are seeing or what you're experiencing today? The Darko Institute is saying that its analysis, your analysis, has proven that the governing New Patriotic Party has prudently channeled borrowed funds into all sectors of development. What is the exact, what do you mean by this?
So, you know, the Darko Institute, as you know, is a policy think tank. And what we do is we pick up salient issues that are being discussed, but the facts, the figures to support it hasn't been put together as one document. And so we have very, very amazing group of research fellows at the Institute. So a group of 5 economists came together and put this debt analysis paper together. And what they came out with especially was the fact that let's even look at what the MPP has borrowed or what this administration has borrowed and what the money has been used for. And they proved that the money has been used judiciously. And they listed the whole lot of projects and infrastructural developments that the money has been used for.
3 areas, and then we move on from there.
So I think mainly what the Institute talked about was, let's look at, first of all, where the money has gone into. And I'm going to
what
list
was
some
borrowed
of them.
and where it was, what it was used for.
So they go on to talk about loans signed in 2017 alone. 506 million, and they talked about what the projects have gone into. So you look at the transport sector, development of the Kumasi International Airport, development of the University of Environmental and Sustainable Development when it comes to education. They talk about water and sanitation, additional financing for sustainable rural water and sanitation. They talk about...
Let's just focus on 3. Maybe transport, the Kumasi International Airport. How much did they borrow? How much was invested into that infrastructure? And
Okay, so the development of the Kumasi Airport, there's the 9,703,125. So they are using the US dollar equivalent for all of that.
Okay.
And that is for the first part of the development of the airport. And then they talk about the development of the airport, the second part, where they mention 81,296,875,
Right.
also the US dollar equivalent. So those are the two figures that the institute came up with. And then they talk about, so in all of them, they talk about who was a creditor, they talk about the project itself, the sector, and then they talk about the terms. So they talk about the interest. So this is a group of researchers that came up with all of this data, the interest, and then they talk about the final equivalent that we would pay.
All right. We will move on from that to one final question, and then we'll wrap it up. Yesterday, the Supreme Court declared as unconstitutional the approval by Parliament to pay salaries of the first and second ladies of government. How do you feel about all of it? The tussle and where we've reached now?
Actually, I haven't read the whole judgment, but yesterday I also saw it as a headline. Just as the Supreme Court has also ruled that, I think they said dual citizens can now do, if you have a dual citizenship, you can take on certain appointments. You know, and I thought that's going to bring a lot of good knowledge and bring back into Ghana. On the salaries and emoluments issue, in fact, I've debated on it, you know. We've come to I think a stage in our country where the cry about public expenditure has been so deep, you know, and we've asked ourselves over and over and over again, how are we going to cut down? What kind of expenditure items do we think we don't need? I have seen the work of a lot of first ladies, and I doff my hat out to Her Excellency Rebecca. Okay. For some of the good works that she's done, her foundation, the hospitals, the help, especially recently her support for cancer, children with, people with childhood cancer. I've seen a lot of that in my research as well.
I was at the Gifek House at Kolebu recently.
Okay, so you know what that cancer unit is. So for me, I ask myself that if we take these emoluments from them, how do they continue the good work? That was the first question.
Okay.
But that said, does it mean that their work has to be a public expenditure? Does it have to impact on the state? Or it is time for them to deepen their work in the foundation by raising funds from philanthropists and external donors to make sure that that becomes more of a focus, you know, in directing their work. At the same time, first ladies are called to state functions, state trips. You know, you can't just be a first lady and fold your arms and say you do nothing. So yes, the Supreme Court has ruled that. And if that is not supposed to be a public expenditure, I think I wholly support it. But I think then it will be up to us to then ask ourselves, how do we support the work of first ladies? Because I don't want to see a first lady who just sits and also does nothing. But what was being given to them was not, I didn't see it as a salary. I saw it more as we have taken you from your life. Whatever you were doing to earn an income, I have a life. I do things. I have a responsibility, I have tasks. When you become a first lady, everything ceases. Even with the little political career that a lot of things have to be compromised. So sometimes I see that for the compromise and all that you're going, that's why there was that package for you. Okay. But as I've said, with the current debate on cutting down on public expenditure, we need to tread very cautiously on how we adapt, you know, to our expenditure. Because our democracy is 32 years. We are going to go further. We're going to have more and more and more and more first ladies. So
maybe
we're going
to...
and maybe a
first woman president, you never know. Right.
So for how long are we going to keep, you know, adding on to? And I think that is where these decisions have all been put into consideration, and the Supreme Court has arrived at it.
So it's a question of assessing how much we should give them and whether or not the state should
pay it, or we should find funding that comes. If a foundation has sustainable income, it works. One of the challenges I've always said in my research has always been the fact that he who pays the piper calls the tune. So when external funding becomes very prevalent or predominant in whatever you are doing, you are not able to do exactly what you want to do. So at the same time, we don't want to say that our first ladies should now only rely on external sources and then they now decide what should be done. So we need to also look at it carefully.
But we are clear that they are not public servants.
But we are clear that they are not public servants. Exactly.
Okay. Let's stay on this court issues. There's this ongoing tussle between the legislature and the executive. Now the judiciary is involved. I'm talking about the anti-LGBTQ bill and the impasse that we are witnessing right now. Do you think that the president's hands are tied? I asked this question.
The president has?
Do you think his hands are tied? He himself had been vocal, waxing lyrical about how this bill will only be, he would only take whatever step that reflects the interest of Ghanaians. And now Parliament has gone through all the processes and passed this bill, trying to just translate or move that bill from where it is to the desk of the president has, ricocheted into a whole lot of drama, if I should say it that way.
I don't think his hands are tied.
So why are we still here?
I
2 months after the bill
I think
was
he
passed
has to make a decision as the leader of this nation, and that's what he's doing.
Okay, what are your
He's
thoughts?
a commander a leadership position is totally different from your personal opinion and public opinion. A decision that if you take is going to affect generations to come. We can't predict what is going to happen tomorrow, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. We are hoping for a country that would progress, keep progressing. That is our desire and our wish. The decisions that the president makes today will impact the future of the country. And so I think it is so good, and I find it very wise, that he's prudently considering all options and taking his time to make this decision. I don't see the rush in making such a decision. I don't think the world powers, be it who they are, arrived at decision on LGBTQI just overnight, over 2, 3. No, they took years and years and years to now decide that when you are going to the washroom, excuse me to say, you don't see male and female, you just see washroom. That's where we'll be going if we start allowing all of these laws to be. That's my personal opinion anyway. It's not for the party or for the institute.
Right.
That's why I think that as the leader of the country, as the one who drives the country's policy growth, and it is even more important that he listens to all dissenting views he gets from Parliament. Parliament is legislature, there's executive, but there's also you and I, the ordinary Ghanaian, every citizen, every human being in this country who has a right. He can't come to every one of us. There's representation. But where representation speaks to a certain voice, you don't only want to listen to that voice. Even when you go to church and your priest is preaching and his voice is only what is being heard, when you are going away, you go and read your Bible to support what he said. You also want to analyze and understand. The decision of Parliament holds water. It represents the interests of the majority of Ghanaians. But at the end of the day, we also have to recognize the fact that it cannot be the only voice. So we need to ask ourselves going forward. And then, as I have said, Parliament is what it is today. In the next election, we'll have changes. Does it still represent? So in 4 years' time, would you now go back and say, I'm taking this law back because there's a new set of parliamentarians who don't support it? You understand the intricacies of it? And that's why I think that take your time, come out with something that is comprehensive, and then the good people of Ghana will follow you.
Final belts, please.
No
the
problem.
free senior high school policy. You said you were doing some research.
Yes, some research on it, yeah.
There have been calls for a review. Nobody has said that the policy in itself is bad, but there are some issues in the implementation, like quality of food, like space, like the calendar, the double track system. 2 days ago, the Minister for Education was saying that they are going to improve on some of these strategies when it comes to implementation. But the call has not been to improve, but to review. Why do you think there's some sort of disconnect between what the people are calling for regards to this policy and what the government and the Ministry of Education are doing?
Oh, I don't think that it's a disconnect as such. Well, being in academia and knowing what a policy review process is actually about, it's not as easy as just calling for a review and then you quickly review it.
Okay.
You have to address the challenges, improve upon it. And then if you want a policy review, it's a whole overhaul of what is being implemented. Now, one of the main things is if you haven't tried to address the challenges and you review, you tend to risk actually repeating the same mistakes that you are doing. So as much as possible, you have to ensure that you have completed what we call the policy cycle. So you get to a stage where you have looked at the challenges, you have made suggestions, you worked on, you know, what the document itself contains, and then you can go into. But that said, the review process is even ongoing when you say you are doing improvements.
Is it?
But it's, oh yes, it is. If it is not doing that, if you are not reviewing it, how are you even getting to know the challenges?
Well, maybe
and maybe
The
implementing.
cries of
Oh,
parents,
no. It's not just, but the cries of parents and things, it's about, at the Free SHS Secretariat, and I have taken a lot of data from there as well, I know that they do periodic polls and research work to know what exactly perceptions are about it, what is not working, what is working. And this is part of the policy cycle, to make sure that as you are rolling out, now to say that you're going to wait until the very end before you make or you address the challenges, you're talking about the lives of children and human beings. So yes, and that said, I always ask myself that it's not because I'm NPP, but I went through 7 years of secondary education. Food wasn't perfect. I remember eating. Secondary school foods are never perfect. That gas and you know. But we managed and we coped. And you know what? We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, and I include even my children in it. The generation of this day are different. They should be a little bit more accepting. I used to farm, and I'm so proud. I went to St. Rose's Secondary School for 7 years. We used to farm. We go and do our cassava, and we bring the cassava and eat it on Saturday. Cassava leaf stew, and you see the seeds swimming in. But we ate it, and we enjoyed it. That is what built our resilience and our strength. Yes, I'm not saying it is perfect. And I empathize. Sometimes I worry when my child went through free SHS as well, my daughter. Today she's a physiotherapist. But what I want to also say is that we don't have perfect systems. I've traveled Tanzania, Kenya, all other countries. This free SHS is a game changer. If you look at the indices in education and what it is doing for us in our Human Development Index and pushing a lot of children out of that poverty and families out of that poverty bracket, let's accept it. Let's criticize it. As much I am one of the critical people in it, and as a researcher, I distance my politics from my researcher and I say, this is what I think we should be doing, this is where we should be going. And that's why I can feel free enough to do a study on child marriage and the free SHS policy.
Right.
So I don't think there's a disconnect. I think what is happening is the policy cycle would roll, and yes, there will be a review.
Now,
that I know will happen.
In the face of all that's going on, all the issues that are coming out of this free SHS,
yes,
the Ministry of Education is saying they are rolling out brand new uniforms to rebrand basic school education. Is that what we really need at this point?
I think there's a reason behind, I see that, but basic school education and free SHS are two different things, of course.
I mean, the issues in education sector, teachers are on strike, students are, what's it called, NUGs and the rest are asking for decapitation of the scholarship fund, debt fund, right? And I'm wondering, in the face of all that's going on, the ministry's priority right now is rebranding uniforms.
Is it the priority? I think it's an additional thing and it's not about a priority right now. I'm not privy to too much about what went into this, but I know that it has been ongoing for a while about how they're going to ensure that. And I think some of these things is a motivation for the children themselves, you know. Let's give some of these things a value that it deserves. I don't like going to other countries and seeing their children in uniforms that speak to, you know, all sorts of. I didn't go to public school, but the brown and the Yes, I think we should give them a brighter uniform, so I'm happy about that.
Dr. Antoinette Tsibu-Darko, what are your final words?
My final words? Yeah. As a social development analyst, as a firm believer in the blue, red, and white party, I have blue blood flowing through me. I believe that what the MPP has done and what the MPP can do for Ghanaians is amazing, is awesome. When you look at the policies, the programs, what has been intervened, especially social interventions, I think that has been the bane of the MPP. From free SHS, I mean, let's even talk about free maternal health policy, national health insurance, and then today when we look at free school feeding, all the way up to free SHS. I think social interventions when it comes to the MPP, and arguably, you cannot but. And that is why I have faith that with the coming of Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia as the president of Ghana come 2025, things would even be better. Because with him, not these social interventions alone, but with him would come digitization, a strong, firm belief in a system that transforms the country from this stage to an even greater height. And that is my last message to the good people of Ghana. Let's have faith in the MPP,
right,
and we'll do it.
Thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure chatting with you.
Amazing being here. Thank you very much, too.
Dr. Antoinette Tsibu-Darko is the Executive Director of the Dankwa Institute and Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. Now, before we go, I want to tell you about Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. Escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. That is at Jirapa, Dubai. I mean, you've seen the rest. Now it's time to see the best. Take a break from work, take a break from the south, and enjoy the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. It's a place to relax, rewind, re-energize. It's away from the stress of this place, Accra. Now, this is what awaits you if you go. First, unforgettable safari experience. Amazing array of wildlife, including lions, hippopotamus, zebras, ostriches, among many others, using their spacious and well-secured game tour vehicles or using squad bikes. 2, you have access to water sports such as jet skiing, boat or canoe rides, etc. And then there are various family games to keep you and your families excited every day. So great tourist attractions in the Upper West region, including the Mushroom Rock, the Slave Caves, etc. So please, whatever you do, plan to escape from the south, escape to the north, escape to Royal Cozy Hills Hotel for an unforgettable safari experience. You can call them on 050-169-4280 or 024-88-44463 for reservations and further inquiries. And that's how we wrap up for AM Exclusive today on Thursday. My name is Sweetie Abochi. There's still a lot more coming your way on the AM show. Stay tuned.
Welcome back after that, well, all-encompassing conversation. We move on the big stories, and we are going to focus now on the SML issue. There is a push for government to release the full findings of the KPMG report on the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited and Ghana Revenue Authority deal. Now, this follows, of course, the KPMG audit, which, among others, revealed that 1 billion Ghana cedis had so far been paid to SML for revenue mobilization services. And we're delving into the details of that 5-page document as released from President Akufo-Addo's office, among other dynamics. Some are saying, where is the full report? Is this a full communication? What more can we expect? The president has given, so to speak, that directive, the go-ahead on parts of the deal, but there are some other aspects that have to be renegotiated or looked at. Joining me in the studio, I have Kweku Asante, who has been on that beat. He's also parliamentary correspondent. Kweku, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
And it's good to have you join the conversation this morning. This SML thing, I mean, in-house, out there. People have spoken about it. We've had interactions about Chalena, reports and all of that. Let me just start from here. the 5-pager that we got, how does that sit with you as a journalist?
Well, I mean, personally, it seems to me as though the now demand that is, coming up, that the president publishes the full report is quite germane, because here we find in this pager, the 5-pager, the president quoting. In fact, he's not even quoting, he's trying to paraphrase what KPMG might have found. And, normally it's good to hear from the horse's own mouth. These are the persons who've gone down there.
When you read the fine print, then you get to form a personal opinion.
Understand how they were able to do their work, specifically what interviews they were able to conduct and what they were able to get. Because if you read this president's document, it does not necessarily give you specific quotes. It doesn't quote anything at all. It just tells you what they think KPMG's findings were, and they reproduce them in the words of Eugene Ahen, who put this press release out from the communications directorate of the presidency. This has been quite a raging controversy for some time now, since Manasseh and the Fourth Estate put out that investigative piece titled "A 3 billion CD Lie." The minority in Parliament and Parliament as a whole is investigating this. It's not ended. And whilst that was subsisting, the president ordered KPMG to do some investigation into this. There are those who have even said that, listen, that is just a whitewashing job that the president is seeking to do with KPMG. So it will be quite crucial for the president to order the full release of that report from the KPMG so that people can see. But I mean, why
do you think that hasn't been done? Because it's actually been a while since the presidency
received that report,
stock of the report, and now instead of giving the report,
they've issued a white paper. I mean,
a white paper
it's something the government has been doing. And in that interview of Manasseh Azikiwe that I did yesterday, we'll be playing it. Manasseh Azikiwe talks about the GIDA report from the erstwhile
administration. Right.
When it was published, it was found out that the report had much more detailed and much more damning revelation than the presidency put out in their white paper. Because the presidency obviously is not going to put out anything that contradicts or that inflicts any wound, political wound on the government, as it were. And so they will normally sugarcoat things. And so it is crucial, it is so fundamental. And civil society organizations, Ben Boache, Brad Simmons, they've already been making that call, that demand, that the president must cause the full report to be published so that the average Ghanaian can pick up that report by themselves, read it, get to know how KPMG did a work. In fact, that can even give room for people to assess whether KPMG did a good job in the first place. That is going to lead into the recommendation that the downstream petroleum review that SML is doing should still continue. The president is giving them the go-ahead to do this. So it is crucial that they do that. In fact, for instance, if I go to some of the key findings, as per the president's communication that KPMG may have made, they say that no technical assessment was done prior to engaging SML. So GRA itself did not do any technical assessment of a sort to get to know what exactly the service they require, which service is already being rendered by other state institutions, for which reason we need SML to come and do this. But of course, then the presidency come in to say that no such assessment was legally required by SML, and that after SML was engaged, the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors and then an Ernst & Young audit report all reported that the Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement of the Ministry of Finance found that there were some under-reporting and under-declaration, as well as potential revenue leakages, for which reason this was important. It also comes out that KPMG found that on 3 different occasions between June 2017 and September of the same year, the GRA had been seeking to get the public procurement authorities' approval to use single source procurement to actually service the work of SML. On all 3 occasions, PPA actually rejects the advances of GRA and says that we cannot give you sole sourcing approval to go and do this. And so GRA then gives this contract as a subcontract to an already existing contract between government and the West Blues Limited.
Right.
That means that they can just go and subcontract without going to the Public Procurement Authority. And then when the West Blue contract expires, they just give them a substantive contract, again without having recourse to the Public Procurement
In other words,
Authority.
they are in breach of not standard regulations when it comes to public procurement.
Exactly. But the
and they have undermined that process by circumventing the PPA.
Exactly.
And of course, if you know the history of the PPA with Ejenim Boating and everything, you realize that now the work being done and they are finding ways of circumventing
the process to do that. So that is quite important. Again, KPMG concludes that SML only partially delivered on the service requirements that was required of them to do their job. Again, the president says, however, given the observations made during the investigations, GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service that SML was said to be offering, which they were paying billions to. Again, when it came to the external price verification services, KPMG concluded that SML delivered again partial service requirements and that GRA may also not have obtained all the expected benefits. Then there's also the big issue about the downstream petroleum audit services, where KPMG now says that there was an incremental volume of 1.7 billion liters and an incremental tax revenue. So here, they seem to say that SML did a good job. But already, Brad Simmons and CSOs, Brad Bemboachenko, are saying that you cannot attribute the high intake, the consumption of fuel to SML simply because of the work that SML did. So it will be interesting to see the report to find out how exactly KPMG came by this conclusion. Now, KPMG also makes some findings that, for instance, between 2018 to date, GRA has paid 1 billion and 61 million Ghana cedis in terms of that. And then the total fees estimated to have been paid under the 2023 contract for 5 years is 5 billion 173 million Ghana cedis, which averages about 1 billion Ghana cedis every year. That's not the amount of money that we're talking about here, billions of cedis that is being paid. So KPMG makes a couple of recommendations that the presidency accepts. So let me take you through some of the recommendations that KPMG make and the acceptance of the president. The president says that the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services have not yet been commenced and no payments have been made in respect of those services. Therefore, that contract may be terminated. The president doesn't direct categorically that it should be terminated. He says it may be terminated. And that given the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit service could prevent significant revenue leakages, the president has directed that the ministry and GRA should conduct a comprehensive technical needs assessment and value for money assessment before implementing such services. It means that previously they did not do that. Again, the transaction audit and external price verification services may also be terminated. Again, they call for that. And then the president conclude again that there's clear need for the downstream petroleum audit service provided by SML. GRA and the state have benefited from these services since SML commenced providing them. There has been an increase in volumes of 1.7 billion liters and an increase in tax revenue to the state of 2.55 billion cedis.
So,
and KPMG has also observed that there were qualitative benefits and all that, for which reason they believe that that contract must go ahead. But there's this sticking point.
So maybe let's do that quickly, and then we can hear from your interaction.
So,
actually,
from Manasseh. So it comes up that one of the reasons why government is not really interested in cancelling this contract is that they say that if they were to cancel this contract, according to KPMG's direction, the state is going to pay so much to SML for what they call the way SML has mobilized itself to be able to do this job. So the group that did this investigation, Manasseh Azuri from the Ford Estate led this. He says that it is so crucial that the president publishes this report. And just like the background that has been given, of course, they do not also believe that the downstream petroleum audit, for instance, should also be going on because that's something they believe MPA and other state institutions are already doing. So let's listen to Manasseh on what it makes of this white paper put out by the government and the demands they are making.
In a sense that it is commendable that the president decided to look into it and certain actions have been taken. It is important to stress that the component of the contract that has been cancelled is the biggest component in terms of the revenue we are saving. The upstream, petroleum, and also the mining sector components of the contract, per our production figures as a country, we were going to pay about $90 million to KPMG every single year. So that angle has been, or component has been cancelled. So it is significant savings, in addition to some price verification aspect that has also been cancelled. Now, the part that has been kept is the downstream petroleum contract. And that one, the president based his decision to keep the contract on the basis that SML is checking under reporting and under declaration. If you watch our documentary, we put this question to SML and asked whether they were doing under reporting or they were checking under the reporting or under declaration. The company said they were doing none of those services.
It was on their website.
It was on their website, and after we confronted them, they deleted that information from their website. The GRA, which awarded the contract to SML, also told us that SML did not and does not check under reporting or under declaration. The most disturbing part of that contract is the measurement that SML's meters claim to be taken. Those measurements are not used for tax purposes by even the GRA, which contracted them. We asked the SML engineers, which of the recordings, the NPA has a system called the ERDMS that is connected to the customs system, the ICOMS. And it is the figures that go through the NPA system that are used for tax purposes. And SML's engineers explained that their meters, the SML meters, are non-intrusive. They are placed on the pipelines, but the meters at the depots that go through the NPA system that is used by customs, they take more accurate recording because they are intrusive. They take the exact measurement of petroleum product that goes through them. So the very basis for keeping that contract that SML is checking under declaration, under reporting, the company has said on record, and it is in our documentary, on camera, that we don't do those services.
So on what basis then will the presidency be acting by saying that that contract should rather go on?
So that was the conversation there between Manasseh Azure-Awini and Kweku Asante, my colleague here. And we glean quite a number of interesting things. For me, I find it very curious that the full report is not being released. And for how long we'll engage in these tactics, only God knows. But let me have my guests espouse their thoughts, and then we can take it from there. Joining us, we have Dr. Theo Champong. He's a political risk analyst. And we also have Benjamin Boakye, Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right. I'll start with you, Dr. Theo Champong. I am visibly disappointed. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, we all wish we had seen the report attached to the white paper, because I mean, the white paper basically tries to summarize the report or aspects of it, but we don't know fully what went into those conclusions that KPMG made in their assessment. So I lend my voice to the calls by my colleagues in civil society and others for the full report to be made, publicly available. Again, some commendation to the president in terms of actually getting KPMG to look into this. But when you look at the substantive issues that are coming out, it goes to confirm, for me, a lot of earlier assertions that myself and my colleagues in civil society, including Ben and Bright, had made about some of the claims that SML was making, which actually, when you subject it to strict scientific scrutiny, would not stand, right? So there are two big issues that I think we need to unpack. The first one being the legal and the regulatory issues around the technical needs assessment that was not done, around the fact that parliamentary approval was not given for these multi-year contracts that flouted the Public Financial Management Act of the country, and the fact that even at the corporate management level of GRA, some of the earlier contracts, specifically the 2018-2019 contract, were not sent to the board of the GRA for approval. So you see quite a lot of lapses and blatant, in my view, violation of the public financial management and other corporate governance protocols of the country that you would not see perhaps in other jurisdictions. That's the legal and the regulatory. Then on the technical issues, which we had spent a lot of time working on, there are four things there that, again, or four services that SML attempted or did provide to Ghana through GRA. The first one relates to transaction auditing. The second one, external price verification. The third one being the downstream petroleum audit. And then the fourth one being the upstream petroleum and then the mining audit, and that one is not even, started. And if you look at the summary document that the presidency presented on the transaction and then the external price verification, they say that SML partially delivered on the commitment. But from where I sit, I mean, what did they deliver on exactly? And how were these values
that's
assessed?
a question I was asking myself too. I was scratching my head and I mean, if in private enterprise you give out a contract for an entity to do something and they do not meet what they are supposed to do, what does that mean?
So we need to know. I mean, even in terms of percentages, if you say that, okay, maybe they delivered 80 or 90, fine, we can accept that. But if they partially delivered and it's, let's say, 20, 30%, and they still haven't met 70% of that, it's a simple arithmetic. But again, it goes to show the importance of releasing the full report so we can, comprehensively assess that. Again, when you take the downstream petroleum audits that KPMG says that before and after, the volume of petroleum increased by about 1.7 billion liters, and there was this incremental tax revenue of about 2.5 billion. Again, from where I sit, I think it could potentially be a bit of a red herring without having us fully seen the report. So we all want more revenue. We all want to build more schools, more hospitals. Nobody disputes that. But if you want to do this sort of technical work, I'm asking myself, were all the other confounding factors isolated, and therefore one can pinpointedly say that the increase in revenue was as a result of the interventions that SML made, right? This one, you can subject it to some statistical test. You can easily do that, and one can come to some conclusion. Possibly it may have helped, but it is not fully responsive for that, because we've seen that the volumes of consumption actually have been increasing over time. And number two, the pricing regime is also dynamic, right? So you need to isolate those two important factors before we can actually even come in to say that the volume increment is as a result of whatever SML did on that part. And so I have quite a number of question marks around that without having fully seen the full report. And then on the upstream petroleum and the mining side, I think it's even a non-starter. And I've argued that SML does not have the capability or the capacity to do the sort of auditing that is required, especially with upstream petroleum. And already we have all these metering systems that are working. Ghana gets its entitlement. The oil companies get their entitlement. And I've said several weeks ago that the biggest problem we have on the upstream side, and Ben may confirm this, is actually in relation to cost and not revenue, right? So what you need to do is a full, proper cost auditing. And when it comes to cost auditing, there are companies out there that are better suited to doing that than what SML proposes to do. Similar thing on the mining, where what you want to do really is more a detailed transfer pricing auditing on some of the bulk minerals.
All right. Thank you, Doc. Let me also bring in Ben Boakye, Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy. You know, when you start reading the Jubilee Houses or the executive's white paper, it says, these are the findings. These are the findings delivered by KPMG. Don't tell us what the findings are. Give us the report. Let us see the report. Then we can deduce what the findings are. But having taken stock of the white paper, and shortly we shall also get to the response of SML, which is, you know, claiming that, well, on the back of this, we're moving on and all of that. Before we get there, what is your appreciation of this white paper as delivered by the presidency?
Thanks, Ben, and thanks for the earlier comments by Theo. I mean, there are two parts of me. There's one part that says, I mean, we don't really need this report. And there's one part that says, at least for the capacity of KPMG, we want to know the analytical rigor of what they produced so that we can interrogate it. And that is simply because we had indicated to the nation and the president that it was a straightforward matter after the investigation that such a service was needless and it was not serving us any good. We proceeded to do the analysis to show the trend from the historical data of NPA, how petroleum consumption had behaved, and the growth pattern in consumption. And it was clear from that government data, it's not our data, it was NPA, an agency of state's data, that showed that there is no growth in consumption that can be attributed to the transaction between SML and the GRA. We proceeded to use GRA's own data, and it's available. It's available to the Ministry of Finance. They have sharp guys, PhD holders, masters, analytical capacity to be able to examine the data and tell the nation that indeed there is nothing that is attributable to the contract between a GRA and SML. So all we needed was somebody who at least have some background in Excel at the presidency to confirm those numbers and tell the nation that we don't need to spend a dime, a city, engaging KPMG to do any assessment. And that was our position. We had done all the work. And indeed, if you look at some of the recommendations that they are...
So are you suggesting that what KPMG did was wasted effort and, of course, wasted taxpayers' money?
It was time, just buying time, wasting our time, when the issues were so clear that there was no value add to the whole downstream operations. In fact, when you have flow meters, contact flow meters, already installed, monitored and calibrated by the state, and you just deciding to add electronic seals to be able to confirm those flows, your margin of error rather increases. Right? So what you want to do is to make sure the Standards Authority calibrates those contact meters, which are much more efficient than electronic seals, to be sure that the state's interest is protected. We have Navy, we have GRA Customs, we have NPA, we have BOST, we have national security, even at the depots and all those places. If all these agencies have failed to protect the interest of the state, we cannot assume that one single company will be the one to deliver value to us without fixing the core of the issue, even if there were genuine issues at play here. So you read some of the findings, and it's clear that it was a cooked deal. There's no value for money conducted. People woke up and gave a transaction and implemented it, even without PPA's approval, because they were willing to do it rather than extracting value for the people. And that is why GRA has not been interested in actually ensuring that the contract was delivered. Incredibly, the monies were paid. So you're not ensuring that we get value.
Right. Over 1 billion Ghana cedis paid. But a critical point, are you saying then that this wasn't necessary because in the end, all of this had been cooked, and that maybe in the fine print of KPMG's report, we could find other things? Because the presidency is saying, you know what, you have the green light, you can go ahead. It's just some other angles that have to be renegotiated or taken a look at. In other words, nothing has changed.
Nothing. Nothing has changed if you look at it. And it was predicted that this whole thing was to buy time so that we produce something to make it necessary for the contract to persist. And that is clear from what we are seeing from the presidency.
Has that plan been achieved, do you think?
I think so. And that's why we need to check the report that was produced and check it with the evidence that is available, whether KPMG was that analytical enough to produce a document that reflects data, publicly available data, publicly available information. For example, if somebody says they spent $44 million just buying electronic seals, what did KPMG say about that? Because they know, they have the data. It's a global giant of a service provision company. They know where the Honeywell seals are sold. Honeywell seals don't cost more than $25,000 each. If you have 20 depots, all right, and you are perhaps doing about 4 those seals at every depot. You have about 80 or so of those from inflow and outflow. So you probably be installing about 88 of them. So about 80 electronic seals. You are not spending more than $2 million on that project.
Right. Let's
be inflated for the political economy considerations and you know, the usual corruption that you have with some of these transactions. Even put it at $10 million. It is way off.
So in other words,
estimate of how much it costs to deliver such a project. All right, and they just absorb it, $44 million. Beyond that, let's even assume that was what was spent. Which business can you do in Ghana with $44 million and get $1 billion in 5 years? It's ridiculous, to say the least.
Well, I guess we do magic in Ghana, but let's look, even before we delve into further aspects of this, let's look at Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. Right on the back of this, they came out with this, a statement, stoking themselves. And let's find out what they had to share. So they say, on January the 2nd, 2024, the presidency appointed KPMG, an audit, tax, and advisory services firm, to conduct an immediate audit of the full risk reward partnership agreement between the Ghana Revenue Authority and Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. It goes on and on. But then let's cut to the chase. 1, allegations of impropriety. And gentlemen, I want you to focus on this so that you can share with me your thoughts on what you think on them step by step. 1, allegations of impropriety. The KPMG report debunks the false claim of $100 million paid to SML and refutes the 10-year contract claim made by Manasseh Azuri-Awene and the Fourth Estate. However, SML likes to point out that KPMG's finding, which suggests that fees estimated to be paid under the 5-year consolidated contract average about 1 billion Ghana cedis per year, is false. So they are still, even after the report, even from what we know, they are still contradicting these. Now, the need for SML services affirmed. KPMG confirmed the importance of the upstream and mineral agreements. SML further observes that a comprehensive needs assessment in those sectors was previously conducted. And all of these will come to the fore because you don't have the proper report. You're only getting hearsay, or at least what has been gleaned by the presidency from the report. Needs assessment criteria. SML disagrees with the findings that a needs assessment was not done before SML commenced operations. Then they talk about the award of the 2023 consolidated contract. They say the award of the performance-driven contract was in full compliance with the Public Procurement Act. Then on point 5, transaction audit and external price verification agreement. They say with the findings, SML disagrees with the findings of the transaction audit and external price verification agreements. It goes on and on. Point 6, below par delivery on contract. SML rejects KPMG's assertion that it partially delivered on several requirements regarding the transaction audit service agreement, which is where, again, if we had the full report, like Dr. Theo Champon was saying, we'd be able to realize how much did they achieve. Was it 30% in any scoring? That is a failure. Was it 50%? That is average. Was it 90%? Was it 70%? Which would mean there's quite a shortfall. I mean, we do not have all these details. SML's performance assessment. SML, that is point 7. SML notes that KPMG confirmed that due to the implementation of the downstream petroleum audit agreement, there were qualitative benefits, including a 24/7 electronic real-time monitoring of the outflow and partial monitoring of inflows of petroleum products at depots where SML had installed flow meters. KPMG also confirmed that other important benefits from the SML technology, whatever that technology is, including a deterrent for under-declarations and several levels of reconciliation and validation, prevented revenue losses to the GRA. Point 8 talks about realizing the petroleum volumes and the tax revenue. And then point 9, misleading representation of compensation and pricing. They say SML finds that KPMG's failure to state GRA taxes of 31.5% taken before payment, interest payments of 32% plus the investment repayment made by SML, and other taxes or duties over the period creates a very unbalanced impression of the relationship. I mean, it goes on and on, but let me bring in my guests on these. I do not know whether you have seen this document. I think it just adds fire or pours kerosene on the flame of the scanty information we have on this. I'll come to you, Dr. Theo Champo. What do you make of these responses? And even where KPMG, what we know, there's a scintilla of information against SML. They come and they say, even that is not right. Your reactions?
I don't blame SML. They're defending their corner. But the reality is that they cannot cherry pick and, the information from, for example, the report, and then take the bit that suits them, and then the bit that doesn't suit them, they say, oh no, this one we disagree with it. It's a big document. They go on and on about what they've done and how it's benefited the country, blah, blah, blah. The reality is that even with the KPMG report, it says that in some parts they partially delivered. We don't know how much. In the bits that they even claim to have done work in the downstream space, again, we've done the analysis, shown the evidence that cannot statistically be the case when you take into account the volume growth over the period, the price discrepancies, and and other factors. And then again, in the KPMG reports and the response to this, in the way forward, the white paper says that the return on investment in total that SML claims to have made is $177.5 million. And there's an important point there. KPMG says that SML did not provide, quote, any supporting document or relevant information to verify this. And it goes to the point Ben was making. How do we know that indeed those monies were actually spent? Let's see the bill of ladings and the documents that were used to import those flow meters, the investments that were made. We need to have the evidence base to support that. And I suspect that the value in there is largely or grossly inflated. And if we have to sit down and interrogate this properly, we probably have to slash it by a substantial amount. But it is very clear to me and to some of my colleagues in civil society that this contract, in my view, is not needed, it's not warranted, and does not add any value whatsoever to the country, especially given that you have other institutional checks and balances, and especially in the upstream oil and gas space. If you understand how the mechanics of that space works, what they're trying to do, which they haven't started anyway, is just going to come to naught. Because of that 177.5 million, they claim to have spent about 133 or so. That's well over about 80% of the investment, right, into preparing themselves to do upstream auditing and minerals auditing. I'm asking myself, with what and by what? So it opens up the SML statement together with the white paper that we've seen. Actually opens up a much bigger can of worms, and we cannot authoritatively answer this without having recourse to the full report. And even if we did, we can still do further analysis that can show quite clearly that, for example, in the case of the downstream lifting sector, it is not because of the investment that SML claims to have made that we've seen the increase in volume. That can easily be shown, and that's why I think it's important we see the KPMG report and see the level of analytical rigor that went into it.
Ben Wache, I mean, you've already stated you don't. This doesn't add a scintilla of information to what you feel we already knew. But let me find out. I may forget, so I'm bringing this in at this juncture. Do you think, on the back of what we are seeing, the inactions of SML, the statements they've been putting out, and then we spend even more taxpayers' money to get a report done, and we don't get to see the report? They issue a 5-page white paper on it, and case closed. Case Yamutu. Do you think this borders on causing financial loss to the state and something that ought to be probed even further?
No, I think We need a report. That's the bottom line, to be able to determine some of these things.
If we don't get the report?
As I indicated earlier, we didn't need to do the KPMG job. We needed the president to just look at available data, the institutions that are in the space, engage them, and they would have seen that there is no value add. But given that somebody has been paid, KPMG has been paid, we want to see what work actually went into it to determine whether they generated value. Because in that report, I'm not expecting to see might in that report. I'm expecting analytical rigor that point to specific findings, all right, and basis for those determinations. I want to see how they analyze the consumption trend. I want to see how they blended government's own data and be able to interpret it. I want to see a nexus of the contract itself in that report. So those are the things. I want to see the investment of the company. What did they buy? The value for money for that particular contract, analyzed rigorously, for which reason the state needed to pay them. Those were the gaps in some of the things that we did, analyzing the value for money and the need for the SML contract. It is not what the company says. It's about how the state itself analyzes value for money and what they see this whole transaction. And that's what we're expecting, that if KPMG was given a job to deliver, they would have delivered. I mean, Manasseh was the one who did the investigation. Some of us jumped on to do the analysis further to confirm that they were right, and what they did was indeed.
And that is why, Ben, I mean, we've heard where you're going, but that's why I'm saying, if ordinarily a businessman would do business to get value back, to make some gains, returns, if you have pumped taxpayers' money, our money, into a venture like this, and you claim we have made so much, we've got so much value, you can't prove that value. And now there's a report with damning consequences, and we can't even get the report. Does this not border on causing financial loss to the state?
Yeah, so that's the same point I'm making. If the report indeed is what the president has stated, then of course we have actually caused financial loss to the state. But before we get to that conclusion, we have to make sure that this is really what KPMG put out. Because even before the white paper, some of us had heard that there was a complete, even from the presidency, I mean, we have intel, we get information from the presidency. And the intel that we had was that it was an outright cancellation recommended by KPMG. And now a white paper comes. That gives us a different perspective. Now there are two sides of the story in our minds, and we need to know what really.
So your sources tell you that at the presidency, there were those who were of the school of thought, or at least based on the report, that there should be an outright cancellation. Yet.
Absolutely. I mean, those are the things that we heard before the white paper came. And the white paper tells us something else. So we need a report to now cross-check the two sides of the story and be able to see what exactly KPMG did and be able to establish value for money for this work that was done.
Gentlemen, to cap off the conversation, I just want to put this out there for ordinary Ghanaians to know as well. So per the release, you would find out that KPMG states that the GRA engaged SML as a subcontractor without PPA approval. The Public Procurement Authority. They did not have approval. 3 times they had gone, 3 times they had been rejected, yet they found a way of doing it, subsuming it under West Blue, right? Now, the GRA, again, KPMG says, the GRA-SML deal was not approved by Parliament. Another circumvention. And finally, KPMG also finds that there was no evidence that the 2018 and 2019 contracts were submitted to the GRA board for discussion and approval, contrary to the GRA Act.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Champon would tell you, I mean, he's a political economy expert, right? And this is what we call the political settlement gimmicks. So once the politicians want it done, it will be done, and then they would damn all the consequences.
Wow.
That is exactly what has happened. And particularly in the context where accountability is difficult to extract, you can get away with it. So let's do it. Damn the institutions, damn the established structures, and do it. And at the end of the day, there will be a KPMG report, there will be a white paper, and all of it will just whitewash it. So that is a glaring picture of how the context throws at you.
Right. Let me bring in Dr. Theo Champong. We are wrapping the conversation. But what would it mean if what Benjamin Boakye says is true? That the actual report basically suggests, the full report, an outright cancellation, as Benjamin Boakye has suggested. And yet, we're being told by the presidency, let SML go ahead and let some aspects of this be renegotiated. What would that mean in your mind as an analyst?
Ben, it's very simple. It just shows that there are other vested interests at play. It's a very simple, matter that if we are able to confirm, and I don't know that, I haven't heard that from my sources, that indeed the recommendation from the audit or the work was an outright contract cancellation, which would actually align with what a number of us, right, were expecting. Because again, we've argued this. You do the analysis and you find that there's nothing, really in there. It's pie in the sky stuff, right? Then it shows. And if the presidency is now saying, they may terminate and do this, and instead of shall and all of that, then again it shows you an attempt to soften that stance. And normally, from a political economy point of view, that of course there are bigger hands, behind this that are pushing because people have their vested interest to protect. It's very simple.
Well, gentlemen, if you have any final words, we can take them right before we proceed. I'll start with you, Ben Boakye, maybe in some 30 seconds each. Ben Boakye, starting with you.
No, I think we need a report, and that we're hoping that report will be analytical and detailed enough to show us how the state benefits from this transaction, and also the job of other state institutions are clearly cut out for them. If you're paying $1 billion plus for an investment of that nature, the audit service has to do a performance audit of this contract, be able to establish how that benefit actually accrues for the kind of investment that would have been done. It's a clear cutout job for them. The special prosecutor has a job clearly defined for him. How do you get such a contract done without going through established protocols and processes? I mean, their jobs are cut out for them, and we expect that they will act expeditiously to save the interest of the state. Final words, Dr. Theo Champong.
Quickly, from my side, given the legal breaches, there's enough ground to terminate the contract. I do not see the value that has been, accrued. The numbers that SML is claiming to have invested, 177.5 million, would have to be further interrogated, and I suspect it's far lower than that. There could be a lot of overinflation of the amounts, and we do not need the work that they claim to have done. So I'm actually expecting the contract to be terminated going forward. And like Ben said, I lend again my voice to the audit service to look into this with a proper performance audit, and of course the OSP and other institutions to look into that. But we have enough grounds on the legal front, enough grounds on the technical front to actually, scrap this contract.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having joined the conversation. There will still be more time going into the future to deliberate on some of these matters. Benjamin Boakye is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. And of course, we also had Dr. Theo Champong joining the conversation. He's a political risk analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Now, before we move on to our next conversations, if you're a Christian in any area of leadership and you need more power for impact, then join the host and speaker, Archbishop Charles Agyinasare, and other seasoned speakers from Ghana, Prophet Nanase Sarkodie, Reverend Dr. Steve Wengham, Reverend Mrs. Vivian Agyinasare, and from Nigeria, Reverend Samuel O. Olubiyo, Apostle Richard Udo from Congo, and Apostle Yves Castanu And the theme is how to walk in the power of God. It will be a time of insight, inspiration, and impartation. The date is Monday, the 29th of April to Sunday, the 5th of May, 2024. The time is 8:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. at the Perez Dome at Jowulu Junction in Accra. If you'd like to get more information about this event, just call 0548 633 650. That is 0548 633 650, or visit www.sesummit.org. SE Summit is one word. www.sesummit.org. Supernatural Empowerment Summit. That's what it is. Receive power for impact. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show. Now, it's the commemoration of World Malaria Day. It serves as a poignant reminder of the ongoing battle against one of humanity's oldest and deadliest foes. Oh, did you say you got bitten by a mosquito recently? Well, malaria is a disease that has plagued civilizations for centuries, and it continues to exact a heavy toll on communities around the world, particularly in regions like ours, where access to healthcare and resources is limited. However, amidst this challenge, there exists a beacon of hope, a global movement aimed at raising awareness and fostering action to combat this relentless scourge. Now, Bliss GVS Pharma Ghana holds this day very significant, as it underscores our unwavering commitment and dedication to improving global health outcomes. So you may be afraid of the HIV, AIDS, and all those other things, but have you taken stock of how many people die of malaria, especially in tropical Africa? Joining us for a conversation on this, we have David Deladem Tete. He is Chief Pharmacist, and Jean. Okay, so I think I'll have to... What's the first name again?
Jean.
Jean.
Yeah.
With a double N?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't want to butcher his name. Jean Bwedi Boateng. He is Manager, Greater Accra and Eastern Region. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
If I asked you as just a potboiler, sort of, what's the state of malaria in our part of the world, what would you say? I know, I've thrown a hot potato at you.
The state of malaria in our part of the world is scary, very scary, in the sense that the number of people that die on a daily basis, extrapolating to monthly, to yearly, it's a lot. So it's a scary look at how our part of the world is handling the oldest and deadliest disease, that is the malaria.
I'd like, though, Jean, for you to elaborate a bit on the significance of World Malaria Day. I mean, year in, year out, we do this and all of that. Are we even making any impact?
Yeah, we are. So I think yesterday or last 2 days, we normally have donations to hospitals. Yesterday, something interesting happened at one hospital. The amount of drugs we wanted to give them, they were like, oh, they might not be able to consume that much because the cases of malaria they get has dropped. Yes. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting, because hitherto they would have been wanting to take all these drugs to use. But now it looks like, in some areas, in some vicinities, the cases of malaria has dropped. So we are making headway.
Well, I've been reading some of the reports in the past, and indeed, we are making some inroads, but in some other parts of the country, it's still a dire situation. That's what we ought to be tackling. But tell us about Act for Africa, the ACT, Act for Africa, and this initiative. Tell us a bit more about that.
So the ACT is basically an acronym for the artemisinin-based combination therapy. It's a campaign that Bliss GVS Pharma has taken upon itself to embark on. And in this same campaign, we are embarking on journeys where we are looking forward to making significant contributions into eliminating malaria in our part of the world. So we do this through donations of medications to hospitals. We do education in nursing training centers, market activation. We meet one-on-one with various stakeholders, and then we go through severe and series of education on malaria and how to help eliminate malaria.
Yes.
So we are looking for a malaria-free continent, huh?
That's the ultimate goal.
That's a tall order.
Yes.
To add to what he said, the ACT also means act, to act now. So we are not just waiting for the rainy season to start before we start making noise on malaria, how to make sure you sleep in treated mosquito nets, clear your choked gutters. So whenever you get the chance, just act now. If you're given a drug, take everything. If you can prevent a mosquito bite, act now.
In the past, some of your leadership has spoken about, this drive and your commitment to improving global health. Bliss, how do you see that happening in terms of tackling malaria? Let's start from right here with Ghana. Even as you talk global, let's start from right here in Ghana. What are some of the things you're doing beyond this?
So aside the donations, we have, they are called CMEs, Continuous Medical Educations with health facilities. So let's say, for example, we go to Kolebu and we engage maybe the pediatrics departments. We have talks on our drugs. We have talks on how they can engage their clients. We go to pharmacies. We talk to the pharmacists. We talk to the MCAs. For example, if someone comes that, I have malaria, you just don't serve an anti-malaria drug. You first do the test. Even after giving them the drug, how they should take it. Some people take the first 2 days, and once they are feeling okay, they just stop. So aside the donations, we engage these health professionals to also talk to their clients and patients.
It is impressive, though, that for some years now you've been on this campaign, seeking to fight malaria. Sometimes I'm careful about using the word eradicate because it's another ball game.
Yes.
If you go to Cuba, where I've spent some time, they've succeeded in that. But they have other things like Zika, among others in that region. But what would you say has been achieved in these last few years of your drive?
So we look at the medication donations we are working on now, and then once we start tracking the donations, we realize that the medicines we are donating to the various hospitals are being used, and then in these particular hospitals in the areas, the malaria cases have reduced. And that to us is an achievement.
So the caseload has gone down?
Yes, in those areas. So we're looking at making it a holistic something we are looking at. So in the long term, we're trying to make sure that, if not totally, we will just reduce the cases of malaria in our country. I mean, we can't do this on our own, so we have other stakeholders that we are partnering with.
And in terms of these health institutions, generally the feedback has been positive, right?
Very positive. Very positive. I think last 2 days we even went to National Malaria Elimination Program.
Yes.
We also went there to partner with them to find out what help they need from us, so we can also support them in fighting malaria. Yeah. So I think quite a number of people are interested in trying to eradicate malaria in Cote.
You've also had some engagements with health institutions, the training schools, nursing schools, and the rest. What exactly is the target of such engagements? What are you hoping to achieve? What have you achieved so far?
So
okay.
We can start with you.
Yes.
He'll chip in.
So we're engaging the health professionals because they are in the first line meets with the patients. So when somebody falls ill with malaria, they go to the hospital, they meet the nurses, the doctors. So we engage the nurses and the doctors because they have a direct contact with the patients.
Right.
And so far, we have achieved this with our interactions with the nurses, with the doctors, with the various CMEs we are doing, the educations we are having with the nursing training schools and the market activations, so that we also need to educate the people that so once you get malaria, you don't need to do that on your own, do the treatment on your own. You need to get tested either at a pharmacy or a hospital first before you get into the treatment.
Okay, Jane?
So I think you spoke of the nursing training. So the idea behind the nursing training was that normally in the vicinity, once someone gets to know that he or she is a nurse, mostly any illness at all, any disease at all, the first person they'll go is to the nurse, anti-nurse, or this. So we try to educate them on malaria, because malaria has symptoms close to other diseases. So let's say if someone in the community comes to you as a nurse that his or her child has malaria, what should you do? What are the steps you should take? What education can you give to the person? Wherever you are staying, would you be able to communicate with your communities to just check out for choked gutters, treated nets, and all that. So that was the idea behind the nesting training schools.
Moving forward, what then is the plan? Bliss, GVS, and what can we look forward to when it comes to eradicating malaria? I have used your term, which I tried to stay away from.
Malaria.
What is the plan?
So the plan for Bliss GVS ultimately is that for us being a research-centered institution, we are looking at innovative ways to tackling this disease. So different formulations of the medication, whether it be a tablet, suspension, suppository, any other injections, any other way that we can be creative enough to tackle this disease. We are looking into these areas, and hopefully we are going to achieve what we set before us.
You're hoping to make some major inroads in that.
Yes, we are very
positive. Just to add to what he was saying.
Right.
So I think last year we even launched a drug that you have to take just one tablet a day for 3 days, because we also had feedback from the doctors that for some of the medications, patients are not able to stick to their doses. So we had to go back, come out with new ideas to how to make patients adhere to their medications.
So with the regular Lonats, taking 3 times, twice daily, 3 times, like 3 days, twice in a day. Now with this new...
No, I completely understand. I have friends who tell you, Charlie, they've taken it for a few days, they're feeling better and they want to stop. And you tell them, follow through. But people naturally, so maybe if it's simpler, 3 tablets, they are good to go. But how can other institutions, organizations partner you, help, support, so that you get to the end of the race, the finish line?
Right.
Quick thoughts on that.
Yes. So we are grateful to the National Malaria Elimination Program, because once we reached out to them, they also expressed their interest into combating this disease. So if anybody out there wants to take this on to, they can just reach out to the Ministry of Health, reach out to us, reach out to the National Elimination Program, and then we just partner, draw a plan, and then we just tackle the disease.
Jean, final words, any call to action?
So I would like to educate all of us, including myself. Let's look at the preventive aspects, even as much as looking at the curing aspects. Let's try to prevent malaria. So in the long run, we'll have a very safe country.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for having joined the conversation. Of course, we are grateful for the work you're doing. Mosquitoes don't discriminate. They bite everybody. So
they don't.
If you think you are hiding in your corner, and just one can do
exactly.
Yeah. Those who joined us for this conversation, David Deladem Tete, he is Chief Pharmacist, and then Jean Bwedi-Boateng, Manager Greater Accra and Eastern Region. They are with Bliss GVS. Stay with us. We'll be back with more action right here on the AM Show. Welcome back on the AM Show. Now, as we go, yes, we're going to be having some interesting conversations as far as the GRA is concerned. But first, let me find out from you. Are you a resident of Ghana earning income abroad? Have you declared and paid taxes on the income that you earn abroad? The GRA is giving an opportunity to all resident persons in Ghana, that is individuals and entities, to voluntarily declare their income held abroad within a specified window in order to be relieved of payments of penalties and interest for non-disclosure or false or misleading statements. So take advantage of the policy now. The GRA can be reached by email on info@gra.gov.gh and on WhatsApp on the number 0552 990 000 and 0200 631 664, or call toll-free number 0800 900 110. Just take note of that. And you might be asking, who is a resident? Well, the tax laws define a resident as any individual who is a citizen with a permanent home in Ghana, residing in the country throughout the year, is present in Ghana for at least 183 days in any 12-month period, and that's about half of the year, that begins or ends within the year, is a government employee or official posted abroad, is a citizen temporarily absent from Ghana for not more than 365 continuous days and maintains a permanent home in Ghana. So again, the GRA can be reached via email on info@gra.gov.gh, by WhatsApp on 0552 990 000 and 0200 631 664. Or you can call their toll-free number 0800 900 110. Now, joining me in the studio for a conversation on this, I have Mr. Paul Ahe. He is Chief Revenue Officer and Head of Exchange of Information Unit. And we also have Michael Edu, who's Head Compliance and Enforcement with the GRA. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The residents must pay, eh?
Exactly.
Let me start with you, Mr. Ahe. Give us a proper breakdown of what this tax on foreign incomes is all about.
Thank you very much. The discussion these days makes it look as if it's a new tax. But the fact is that in 2015, Ghana actually amended our income tax law and introduced a new way of taxing resident persons. And so we used to do what we call the territorial concept of taxation, and we moved from that in 2015 from 2015 to now, we are doing what we call the worldwide concept of taxation. So let me just break down the two for you. So with the territorial, which we were practicing in the past, what it meant was that we only tax resident persons on income that is sourced in Ghana. And so income that is generated in Ghana is only subjected to tax. If you earn a foreign income during those days, you need to bring the money into Ghana or receive it in Ghana or transmit it to Ghana for the purposes of settling a debt or buying a movable property. And that was a bit cumbersome to implement. And so globally, we moved to what we call the worldwide taxation of income. What it means is that resident persons are supposed to declare their income worldwide from various sources to various jurisdictions on a yearly basis for tax purposes. And so that has been the approach that we are using currently. And so its implementation has been there, but we are trying to make it more effective this time around based on some international collaborations that we are having with other jurisdictions who can provide us with the necessary information for us to be able to implement it effectively.
So which category of people are liable to this foreign income tax? I mean, someone may be sitting and saying, I'm no expat in the country or something. I am not here. I'm not working with a foreign mission. I know some of them have arrangements. Is it that Kojo has a job that he's secured, remote work that he secured in the US and he's earning dollars and he must account for that? What is the situation?
Exactly.
Break it down.
And so with your introduction, actually you define who a resident person is. And so you should be ordinarily living in Ghana as a citizen with a permanent home in Ghana to be able to pay this tax. It is tax for people who reside in Ghana. And if you are from other nationalities, you have to live in Ghana for 183 days before you qualify or you be counted to pay this type of tax. Or, as you said, if you work with a foreign mission, you are a Ghanaian posted to work with a foreign mission, we'll still consider you as a permanent resident in Ghana for tax purposes. And so any income that has its source in any other jurisdiction that you, the resident person living in Ghana, engages in and receive that income is considered as a foreign income, which the law prescribes that taxes should be paid on.
Okay, so does this tax, like he said, for even clearer explanation, does it affect Ghanaians living abroad? Who is described as a resident person?
Okay, so to the extent that you are a resident person for tax purposes in Ghana and you have that income elsewhere, you need to disclose it for tax purposes in Ghana. So we're not looking at during the time we are filing your returns where you happen to be technical.
So and I'm just saying this for clarity. if the person is Ghanaian but is working outside the country but has spent 182 days in Ghana, does that person qualify?
Okay.
Because you have the magic number 183, about half the year, right?
Yeah.
So just to clarify.
If you are an employee and the source of that employment income or the employer is a non-resident person, then that income from employment would not be subjected to this review.
All right. And so just to add, if you are a citizen of Ghana and you are living in the UK permanently, you come 180 days. You don't qualify to pay taxes in Ghana because you wouldn't have lived in Ghana for 183 days or more. And so where you live permanently, which in the UK, you probably would have lived 183 days or more. Then you then qualify to pay your taxes in the UK and not in Ghana.
So how is this tax calculated, and what are taxable incomes, by the way?
Okay, taxable income per the definition of the Act, we're looking at any income that is not exempted under the Income Tax Act. So we may have to look at the exclusions.
Okay.
Once we take off the exclusions, all the other incomes or earnings should be reviewed for tax purposes. And we're looking at the income of government organizations or entities. We're also looking at non-commercial entities of governmental nature. We're looking at pension income. And we're also looking at income for a cocoa farmer from the cocoa activity. And any other income that is explicitly exempted from tax. Once we exclude these ones, any other income should be taxed appropriately in Ghana.
Okay.
So by extension, your income that you earn from abroad, excluding the employment income that I made reference to earlier, all other flows of income should be reviewed appropriately.
Mr. Ahe, can foreign tax credits be claimed on this?
Absolutely. And so for the purposes of ensuring that people do not suffer double taxation on the same income, foreign tax credits that you have already paid in other jurisdictions where you earn income, which we are now considering as your foreign income, will obviously be used when you file your returns to make sure that those taxes, which we call the tax credit, are accounted for, and the difference is what you pay. And so when you are filing your returns, we aggregate all your income from employment, from business, from investment, globally. Then we make sure we deduct all deductions that are allowable under the law to arrive at your chargeable income.
I see.
Then this chargeable income, if you're an individual, we apply the individual tax rate, which is graduated, and then if you're a company, we apply the company flat rate to arrive at your tax.
Right.
Then we grant you the foreign tax credit, as you have mentioned.
I see.
Then the net is what is payable to GRA.
So for those who are watching and contemplating and now thinking, oh, maybe I fall in the bracket, what will be the consequences, punitive or otherwise, of non-disclosure or non-filing?
The Income Revenue Administration Act imposes penalties for non-filing of returns, and it's enshrined in the Section 73. And on default, you pay a penalty of 500 penalty currency units, and any other day of default, 10 currency points would attract 10 currency.
Are these graduated?
No, these are absolute figures. So
Okay.
the 500 on default and 10 on any other day in default. That in the case of CST, it's 2,000 currency points on default and 500 currency point on any other day of default.
All right. So what are the benefits? We've spoken about the consequences if you don't, but what are the benefits? We have limited time, but you go ahead.
So the benefit is that there is a section in the Act that actually also gives what we call commissioner is able to grant you waivers, penalties. Right. And it's under Section 74 of the Act. So once you come in voluntarily to actually make these disclosures, you will not be sanctioned as my...
So retrospectively, you will not be affected.
So
but
moving forward, we expect that you start doing the right things. Okay. But all the, I would say, the omissions that you committed in the past, when you come under Section 74 and you come in voluntarily, those will be waived.
In other words, in taxman's religious terms, go and sin no more.
Go and sin no more. Okay. Absolutely.
All right. Final words, Mike.
Just to encourage taxpayers as part of their civil responsibility to file their income tax returns religiously, and we make sure Ghana grows.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for having joined the conversation. Ghana thrives on taxes. We pay our taxes, the nation moves on. And those who joined us, Paul Ahe is head Exchange and Information Unit at the GRA. We also had Michael Edu Owusu, Chief Revenue Officer and Head of Compliance and Enforcement with the GRA. Now, as we go, we actually are going to look at our photo of the day. Ready for that? Here we go. I found myself in Esutuari yesterday, and where I was, the blistering heat, it was maddening. And that is what you saw, the heat. And the trotro driver had to, get out and, do some washing of his face. I didn't say the mate, I said the driver had to get out and wash his face. But the heat is real. And there's also something called sunstroke or heat stroke. So as you go about your daily activities, don't forget to rehydrate. It is important so you don't suffer the consequences of the blistering heat. But we've enjoyed our time with you this morning, for those of you who watch us every day and make this show what it is. We appreciate you. From Sweetie Abochi and yours truly, we say thank you, we love you, have a wonderful day. Up next is Joy News Desk. Stay for that.